Aloha and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeff Bloom. I am with APFIT Hawaii. I'm past president on the board of directors. And for those of you that were here at TechNet Indo-Pacific a year ago, we started something to try to do an industry day because a lot of the feedback we got from APFIT was we'd like a little bit deeper dive about what some of the requirements are for some of our commands out here. And I'd gone to Colonel Hussey and to Mr. Schultes and said, is it possible to do an industry day instead of just, it's great to do a panel and have some breakouts, but they don't go very deep. They're really skimming across the top of requirements. So this is something different. I appreciate everybody taking the time to come here because asking people when they think the show's over at noon or 1 o'clock and stay another 2 or 3 hours, but I think you'll find today will be very rewarding. So again, thank you for taking the time. I have a couple of announcements. One is there are some refreshments in the back, and I want to thank our sponsor, SciLogic, who's sponsored today, and I'll invite their senior VP up in a second to say a couple words about who they are, but thank you again to SciLogic. Also wanted to thank Huntington Ingalls Mission Technologies for their interns who are in the back scanning people. So again, Indo-Pacom, well, we'll share with Indo-Pacom, but with MARFORPAC, we'll know who's here because for those of you that were here last year and have been on some of the threads getting from Mr. Schultes, there were a number of things that happened after last year's Industry Day. In February, we did a Dynamis sprint that was held during the, can't remember what conference was going on, but we did it separately in the conference. It wasn't post, it was a week before post, but I can remember PACT, that's what it was, the Pacific. Bernice can tell you what PACT stands for, but anyways, we did it during PACT. We did 2 days, and it was even a deeper dive than this, and we invited not only our MARFORPAC partners, but also our other components in Hawaii to participate, but also we had the Japanese MOD here, and also some Japanese industry folks that all came and participated in that as well, and we had 3 LOEs that we're trying to solve. From there, it went out to a RFI that was released by McTissa, and TJ Johnson from McTissa will be here. Later on, because he's on furlough, he will be coming in from San Diego to brief. But that was important, and then follow up after the RFI and some other things, even though during the shutdown things have happened. So both Mr. Schultes and the Colonel will explain a little bit where we are and where we're going. So again, I appreciate everybody taking the time today. I want to thank you again, Colonel, for making the time to do it, and obviously Bob for wrangling your staff. Yep, your staff. Well, I think last year we had we had 6 people on the panel or whatever, so you can see, with the shutdown and everything else, some of the folks from Quantico and, Colonel Smith and other folks that were going to be here couldn't be here because of the travel, all of that. So unfortunately, we're a little less constrained. Yeah, we're still in the fight, exactly. I mean, just because the government shut down doesn't mean that the mission stopped, right? We're not all on vacation. So again, it's really important. So with that said, I wanted to again say mahalo for everybody coming here. There are some refreshments in the back. If we ran out of cookies, I think we did, but they're going to bring another set of cookies. So, and there's some drinks. So you're going to be here for a few hours, Bob, and I think you'll enjoy the information that you're going to get today. And then again, we will capture everybody's information. So as Bob keeps sending out updates, you will be getting those updates. So if you weren't here last year, you weren't on some of the ones that we did during the course of the year, you will now, that's why we scanned everybody. We will have your email and we'll send the updates out as we have done this past year. So again, mahalo to everybody for coming today. And right now I'll turn it over to Colonel Hussey, who's the G6. Oh, I'm sorry. I owe it to Chris Alsher from, yes, SciLogic, you're right, so you're on top of me. So Chris.
I'll be quick. Chris Alsher, SciLogic. So good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor for us at SciLogic to be the sponsor today for the MARFORPAC Industry Day. This one's a little personal for me. So on the morning of September 11th, I overslept for the first time in my life. At the time, I was in the 4th year as a Marine Corps Logistics NCO for the 4th Force Service Support Group, and also working as a contractor at the Pentagon supporting Army G3 Wedge 1. Just a few rings over from where the plane struck. the impact tore through the E and the D rings and left a massive hole in the C ring. And that was right where my help desk was. So that day changed everything for me. Not long after, I was activated in Operation Enduring Freedom. Support a forward deploy the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force at Camp Pendleton. I was a senior NCO for logistics. I learned firsthand how quickly operations can shift and how critical communication and coordination become, and how much we rely on infrastructure, both physical and digital, to stay mission ready. That experience shaped how I view technology and why what we're doing at SciLogic matters so deeply to me. Today, SciLogic is focused on delivering the FedRAMP high-ready, security-first distributed cloud designed to enable the core from garrison to tactical edge. In collaboration with Omnissa, we recently launched Horizon VDI on SciCloud, a secure, air-gapped, data-sovereign environment purpose-built for agile, mission-focused deployments aligned with the Corps' JADC2 objectives. Our goal is simple: ensure Marines can operate, adapt, and execute anywhere with confidence in their digital environment. From my time in uniform to what we're building now, the mission has never changed: enable the force and protect the mission. SciLogic remains committed to supporting MARFORPAC's modernization and transformative initiatives, empowering the force to protect our nation's interests across the Indo-Pacific and beyond. Thank you for having us, and Semper Fi.
This is not going to be a slide presentation. Hey, if I don't use a microphone, will the cameras and everything pick me up just fine? All right, I said it this morning, well, I said it yesterday, and probably because I personally know at least a quarter of this room, you know I'm not a quiet person, and I also don't like to stand in the podium or a lectern or be like a scripted briefer. Thank you, SciLogic. Thank you to AFCIA. I mean, when we kicked it, when actually mastermind for Bob Schultes saying, hey, we want to do something different. And, you know, everybody runs around and you spend 20, 30, 45 minutes with, you know, ex-vendor, ex-industry partner. You know, you've got several folks from whatever your unit or headquarters is. To be able to do this, well, you kind of run out of steam. Well, most everybody who knows me, like, I am this way in real life. I'm like, I don't put on the show and go, I'm a gregarious, outgoing kind of guy. I am an extrovert. It drives my wife crazy. I am caffeinated, so I do appreciate the extra beverages in the back and the coffee to be able to keep it soothed. But no, when you think about, and it's not that it's a bad thing when you have keynote speakers, they're trying to get their point across from whatever component or the Interpacom headquarters or a staff element. To be able to do that, and same thing with the panels. Yeah, there's some scripted questions, you know, people think about their answers. I want this to be free-flowing. It's not going to be a free-for-all, necessarily, but I do want it to be interactive. This is meant for us to actually engage with you, to be able to go through this. So, you know, the slides are there to kind of help walk us through where we're going to go. And we already know this is kind of where we are in time and space. As we run through this. And so, efforts that have been going on for the better part of a year now, you know, since the last TechNet, you know, we have it up there, you know, the RFI, the Dynamis RFI, which, how many responses?
190 plus.
190 plus. And so, a lot of good engagement when it comes to that, when it comes to the Dynamis RFI. And then, you know, you've heard it, like, one of the underlying themes inside of here has been AI. I mean, you've heard several panel speakers, several of the keynotes that have addressed this specifically on the most impactful thing that's going on right now is advancements in automation, artificial intelligence, algorithms, the inclusion of that, and not just how we incorporate that, how do we employ it? Because at the end of the day, you can get delivered a piece of gear, a capability set, you know, a certain type of application, but if you don't know actually how you're supposed to employ that in whatever warfighting function, whatever your functional area is, it kind of doesn't matter when it comes to that. And so, as we step through today, again, I do want to make it significant. By show of hands, just real quick, who was able to listen to General Glenn's keynote address this morning? All right, so good portion. Who sat in on the J6 panel? Another pretty good portion. Who was here last year at this industry engagement? still a pretty decent number of folks. All right, always want to just gauge the audience. Who's doing what with whom, who's been where, who has heard you speak at different points in time to go through this. So that gives me a good idea of kind of where we want to take things. Is the video already queued up? Or do you need to
I think we can just. So this is from the February event. After TechNet, after we had met together and done some discussion about next steps to take, this is one of the events that we did. And so it's a short 5-minute video, kind of showing where our mind is and how we worked with the industry to let you better understand our problems and vice versa.
I'm Allied Nation Dual Use Technology Lead for the Pacific International Center for High-Tech Research. It's a nonprofit organization, a U.S. nonprofit, and we bridge the U.S. to Japan and Japan to the U.S. So we're here today really to connect MARFORPAC and its potential partners, both in the U.S. and allied nations, in this case Japan, to focus on data sharing issues that really impact not only MARFORPAC but its partners in Japan within the Japanese Self-Defense Force and the community at large.
So right now we're in beautiful Hawaii for a PICTER Allied Data Sharing Conference, or workshop rather. And we're here partnered with industry as well as our Japanese partners to undergo a series of groups on how to share data in a contested environment. So the importance of the event from my perspective is that it's seldom that you get an eclectic group of individuals in a room to talk about how we're going to share data. And it's important because our systems may not be interoperable time now. That's a challenge, but also the interoperability piece of working with our partner nations. So very important to be able to solve that problem.
I'm Lieutenant Colonel Motokura, Japan Grand Self-Defense Force, Grand Staff Office Liaison Officer to MARFORPAC, Marine Corps Force Pacific. Now data sharing with Japan and US military is very important regarding for preparation for the future. I'm a military person, so after this event, cooperation between Japan and the US military and some test or examination will be happen more fluently between these two partners.
I'm Nobu Takahashi with a company called DRKeys. We're based in Tokyo. We come from the gaming industry. We specifically focus in the very large-scale network solution for online multiplayer games. So we are pretty much a software company that focuses on something invisible. Currently, we are already running in production throughout the world, really. I mean, most of our customers are Japanese game publishers, game studios, and things like that, game titles and whatnot, what have you. But all of those games are actually launched globally. So our servers and game clients are just all over the place.
I think the importance is for us to communicate with our partners, to identify challenges and find innovative solutions to those challenges. It's been an amazing event because we've had a lot of collaboration, I think, across the different working groups that we've set up. We hear voices from industry, from government, from US, from Japan, both on the military side and industry side. So it's been a great opportunity. I'm most hopeful about the collaboration that I'm seeing and the opportunity for industry partners to understand what these challenges are, to be able to talk with both the US and Japanese military to understand where we're all trying to go with the problems that we're facing, and being able to come together and look for ways that we can solve those problems.
It is multiple challenges. It's a hard problem. It ties back to the question of integration. We have, as a country, a lot of complex systems. Sharing amongst those systems is hard. Our allies also have complex systems, and sharing just internally between those is a challenge. and then you add in the challenge of having those two groups of systems talk to one another, there are questions of security. There's questions of, do the communications even exist? Can the systems talk to one another? Events like this are critical for, yes, outlining what technologies we have today, but also gaining a mutual understanding of what are the interfaces that we're going to need tomorrow.
So I'm really hopeful looking at all of the interactions and especially the directionality that's been given by MARFORPAC and MCTISA to team US and Japanese companies to really look at that teaming effort in composite organizations, most importantly to address the underlying needs of data sharing between the two forces and take that forward with other allied nations.
All right. You may have noticed several people in there because some of them are in this room right now going through all this. So, good little intro as we get into this. At this point in time, Bob's going to walk through the next couple of topic items as we've gone through kind of the next one's a year in review to kind of go through all that. And again, if there are questions, if there are certain things you want to get into, we will stop along the way. This is not just going to be a one-way brief. We're going to give a spiel, and then that's going to be it. We do want this to be interactive.
Hey, thanks, boss. So it's been a year already. Holy cow. It's been a year building relationships, and I'm really grateful for it. I want to go over a little bit about what I think we've achieved, where we have failed, and trust me, when I talk about something that, we had a goal, we thought we were going to do a thing, and it doesn't come to fruition, I feel responsible for not getting it there. So, in a sense, I work for you. That's my goal, is to make sure that if we say we're going to operationally test something, we're going to proliferate it somewhere, like, I take that personal, and it's an honor to do that. So thank you for coming here today. If you have flights out early, by all means, execute when, leave when you need to. No worries. This is an open event. Other things, we're going to have stops and breaks and questions and answering period where you can just grill us because you all have questions, and we've done our best to keep up the information flow over the last year, but the several thousand unread emails in my box over the last month would. It's an indicator of where I am and where I'm not. So, we'll continue. I want to have that discussion today. This will not take all day. I think it has 3 hours, or it had 4 hours on the schedule. Goal wasn't to do that, but if you have questions, I'll be here until 2000. I don't care, whatever. Okay, so a little bit about my background, why this is such a passion for me. I say it all the time, that acquisition is a three-legged stool. It's warfighter, it's industry, and it's acquisition. And if all three legs aren't the same size, the daggone stool is just not going to work, right? And this is a partnership together, and that's why we're doing this. My background, I was a jarhead. After that, I worked for a small company. I worked for a large company. I had my own company, had contracts with PP&O, had a couple in the Pentagon, a couple at Syscom, a couple of CD9. I know the pain of it being 0-200, and you're trying to get a proposal out, and you still don't know what the heck the government wants, right? That's not going to happen here because I care about what you do. I care about what you're trying to drive, and there's no such thing as business development. You're doing what you're doing because you're passionate about the capability, and you think it's the best ROI for the government. I know that. And so I'm here to serve you and help you get there. And so then after that, I got smart on acquisitions because I spent almost 15 years at PP&O as a C2 advocate, basically walking through the 57 programs that ended up going to DCI, right? So I was a little mini DCI back in the day. After that, I went to OSD China Policy, And from there, I learned how to restrict our strategic competitors' advantage gains through sanctions and other things that you might do, on the high side to deny a strategic competitor capability. And then I had the honor to come out here and work for Colonel Hussey and get this game plan together. And so I've had the honor to walk through this last year with you. So last year when we had this discussion, I thought we were going to let an RFI in the spring, and I thought we were going to let an RFQ in the summer, right? I think that's about what we were talking about. And that RFQ back then was going to be to do some prototyping on MPE, on everything below the IMN level. So IMN, Indo-Pacific Mission Network, data sharing, that all stops at Echelon 3, and we let our forward elements, the very elements that we want to give information at the tactical edge, we let them sort it out with our allies and partners, right? And that's not where we want to be. That's not, the services role was to close that gap, and MARFORPAC's role last year was to try to take major steps forward to get there. We weren't entirely successful. Why? Partly because Dynamis was too successful. If you'll remember, at that time we were also doing the MCP, the box that nests underneath the Joint Fires Network. And we were really passionate about that one too. So passionate that it was successful, it worked, we built it, and it's being fielded right now. And now Dynamis got picked up as a service program of record. So it's kind of where we thought we were in the driver's seat last year. Be careful what you wish for, because it just might come true, and it did. And so Dynamis became a program of record. If you all don't know, know that there's someone leading that back at CDNI, or I'm sorry, back at DCI, Colonel Arlen Smith. He was on the agenda for today. There's a reason why he was on the agenda, because we are synchronizing effects between he and Colonel Hussey as we look at what we're going to prototype and experiment with, and how that's going to adjust his site alignment, site picture across the FIDP. So what is MARFORPAC's role? I just started to go into that a little bit now. So while it isn't letting RFQs, RFPs, it's requirement refinement, it's prototyping, it's iterative approach with our battle buddies here in this room and with McTissa and with McWill in that iterative feedback. And we've got a little slide on it. I'll show you a picture of it later if you're like me and you need a picture or some crayons or something. So yeah, we're no longer the project manager. We're more like a requirements lead, and then goes down to the overarching theme. You'll always have me as that by your side, true believer that it's a one team, one fight. So a little bit of year in review since the TechNet and some things that have happened. And we'll get into a little bit more facts and figures through TJ's portion as he talks. But some of the things that occurred since then because of us working together was some 5G work that was done out at Pendleton. Some of that went into an APFIT proposal. You already saw the 5-minute video on the allied and partner data sharing that was here. March, we let out the RFI. I think it went I think we had to pull it back and put it back out in April because of some things, but we finally got it out there. And then from May through June, we did a lot of RFI response review. In June, we worked with another entity that was doing a Dynamis Stormbreaker, really log focused down in Austin, Texas. And then in August, we went into, and a lot of you got an email from me saying, hey, please, we would like to experiment with your capabilities. You got 48 hours to tell me how we're going to do that. So, apologies.
But that was a quick turn. That was not our doing. Nothing like that. Throwing a pick'em under the bus, but that was them.
So when that came in, I was like, wait a second. I looked at the who it was sent to, and I was like, I got a lot more friends that would like to play here. So that's how that happened, and you're going to see more of that, hopefully with a lot less turn and a lot less churn. Okay, so over the last year, those events so far have led to an APFIT submission that was top 5, and it looks like it's going to be funded. Numerous CRADAs have been let. I would say a 500% plus increase in operational tests at BK. I think we had 5 last year, and 5 was amazing last year. We're 25 plus, and we're having to shift some to other operations because of our relationship and you understanding the problem set we're trying to solve and leaning and stepping into the pitch. And so, and then some McTissa prototype awards that went out. And so that's been an exciting year. I know it wasn't what I told you I wanted to do last year at this time, but still when I look at where that RFI has led us to and what it's going to continue to do, and we'll talk a little bit about that here shortly, but it's been a really exciting year in review. And so, let's see. Okay, and so, boss, I think that's about it for me, just as a scene setter. I think before we jump into some of the problem side, if you don't mind, can we do any questions as we head into this discussion?
Stunned silence.
Yes.
Not you, Guts. Anybody but you.
Yeah, the question was, are we going to get to a point where we're talking about what's coming up in the future? I don't have a slide on it, but I think we're going to have I think some of that is because we have so many operational tests coming and figuring out how we take that into either prototype or a funding acquisition stream, right? So from the boss and I's standpoint, like it goes back to, again, the assignment I gave you all a year ago was come to me with pots of money that we can go after, right? Things like OSD, APFIT, Raider, Willif, whatever, J81 R&D money. I like every cent of theirs to come to us, not the other components. Do I have any other components in here? Not directly, we're not directly going to go into what's next. I think we'll go through the RFI. I think some of those questions will come out. We'll do our best throughout the discussion. But I think a lot of it has to happen between one, you got Colonel Smith, he's going to do his acquisition strategy. And I think the boss and I still have some questions there in the route they're going to go and how we could best facilitate and help that. But two, I think we need to tighten that loop between he and I as we operationally test so that he's getting results that have MOEs and MOPs, and it's not something after the fact. It's we said we were going to achieve that going in operation X, Y, or Z. These are the effects we achieved. See, it was successful. Because I think we owe him that if we're going to ask him to weigh where that fits in his extract.
Hey Bob, am I online here?
Yeah.
Is this thing on?
We got you, man.
Hey, one of the things, and when we go through my slide deck there to get to this point, I do put in there kind of a vision board of where I think we can go with the next 60, 180, 180 like that. So I have some things that will, again, not specific guidance from the service, but paints a picture of where I think we can go, specific to kind of the prototyping and experimentation stuff that we've kind of queued up. So we'll get to that at that point.
Thanks, TJ.
Thanks. I was here last year. Agree that there's a lot has been done, but Kurt Jenkins from JFN Wireless. One thing that I'd like to hear throughout the day, how much of, well, for this theater, how much you're interacting with other theaters, learning from that, and cross to help us. I love coming to Hawaii, but we're trying to solve a global problem too.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we do have crosstalk with within the MEFs, Marine Expeditionary Forces. It's more ad hoc than it is formalized unless like the G6s bring it up as a discussion point that they want to talk in our bi-weekly discussions. But we could.
A lot of the things that happen, especially in the UCOM and CENTCOM theaters, a lot of COCOM to COCOM, we usually get that via Indo-PACOM. It comes in and down. But there are times when we've had elements from both 1 MEF and 3 MEF to go to someplace like, hey, we're going to go to UCOM and see how they're doing things. Or we're going to go to CENTCOM and see how they're doing things. So it isn't contained or constrained. And I hear it all the time because, folks from headquarters Marine Corps, and unabashedly so, I care about what happens in this theater for the two MEFs that we have OPCON for, operational control. Not that I don't care about what happens on the East Coast with 2MEF, but I kind of don't care what happens on the East Coast with 2MEF. And those of us who grew up going through OEF and OIF and multiple combat deployments in some other part of the world, that's not my job anymore. I do still care about that, but I am focused on the principal adversary. There are a lot of things that we can take away from what somebody is actually doing while they're engaged, like literally while they're engaged going through it. So there are outputs for that. It's not always a one-for-one, but there are some good outputs for that. But thanks.
And sir, if I may, one of the uniqueness of the Marine Corps Tactical System Support activity is that we're 24/7 global. So a lot of those help desk questions, we're seeing help desk questions come in from CENTCOM. We're seeing them come in from UCOM or SouthCom or NorthCom or what have you, because we are support to the entire service and to the Joint Force. We tend to see it from a 10,000-foot view, and what we're able to do and what we're able to provide back to Indo-PACOM in this case is, hey, we see what you're doing. We're also seeing something similar to that in 4 or 5 different use cases. How do you want to take that and then modify? You've got 30% of it, they've got 20%, they've got 15%, right? Do you want to add another 5% to that thing and then look at it from this perspective? So because MCTISA is outside of the day-to-day of an operational unit, doesn't have OPCON, we're able to take a higher level view of kind of the technology that's going across and try and help advise where we can on how to normalize that globally over.
Thanks, CJ. All right, this is our unclassified placement. And so many of you, by the show of hands, have seen this, have heard me give some variation of this pitch or brief going through. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, only to say that this morning when General Glenn, at the end of his keynote, one of the questions was, so tell me a little bit more about 2MEFs abreast. I mean, it's been our operating concept for probably the better part of a year and a half, started with General Journey, at least it started getting formed during that time, and then when they transitioned just over a year ago, this is how we're, no kidding, employing our forces in this theater with an eye towards, we do this in competition so as to set our forces in place when and if escalation occurs in whatever crisis. So you see, what we've got circled up in the left, you think about, well, what do you do from your functional area, from your specialty, or from a component standpoint? Really, when you start talking about what do we need to do when it comes to C5 ISRT and counter C5 ISRT, we got to handle all those. It's not just any one of those things like, hey, sure, I'm the G6, I'm the G39. I got a couple of those things. I've got my own line of effort. It's the same line of effort one as Indo-PACOM's, and there's a suffuse and accelerate information advantage, which part of that is assured C2, assured C4, assured whatever it is that you need to send digits and data and communicate to go through that. But that's just the once-over for this. But when we start talking about, 2MEFs abreast specifically, and you've heard a number of the component commanders talk about tyranny of distance, it's always a reference. You know why it's always a reference? Because it's real. I mean, it takes you 5.5 hours just to get from the West Coast out here to Hawaii. Well, based on time, space, distance, it still takes a long time to get anywhere else if you're going further west in the Pacific, going through all that. And so when you think about, transport, where do I need to have certain things? How do I have to have things set up? Where are my units? And then how do I make sure I can do battle space management and command and control of all those forces when they're arrayed from basically the Pen, Japan, all the way down through the first island chain, Philippine archipelago, all the way down to Australia. There's a little bit of space in between there, going through that. And so, when you think about posture and placement, and then who does what with whom? You hear the term, I get thrown out there all the time, operations, activities, and investments. And there was references made, I think, both on the panel and with some of the keynotes, is an exercise isn't just a training event. When you deploy or employ somebody in another country or somewhere in the Western Pacific, it's a rehearsal. And so you're not just training the training, you're not just practicing the practice, you're actually rehearsing what your warfighting function or what your functional area is responsible for in real time, in the real world. And so you think about, okay, that's a decent amount of stuff. It is, but it's still not enough. You know, those who heard the J6 panel, you heard me talk about resources. I whinge about that quite a bit because it's true. Don't have enough time, don't have enough money, I don't have enough people, I don't have enough stuff. All those fall under the umbrella of resources. When you think about how am I going to resource, 60 plus named exercises inside of this theater each year to go through all that. And then you think about the big ticket items, things like Balikatan. All right, we send X number of Marines and other components of the Joint Force into the Philippines to execute this event, and it is a big one. And it's just like Bob was talking about, the R5 experiment during that. Yep, that is going to be a big showcase. And you think about from not to get into like my 39 hat, but messaging and influence and that. You think about the whole overarching concept of deterrence. Well, how do you deter? Well, you got to show them something. Combat capable forces. To go out there and do that with certain types of capabilities associated with that. Yeah, that feeds into a deterrence message going through all that. And so a lot going forward, but this key one in the red there is persistent forward. Those of you who heard General Glenn talk about, we've got Marine Rotational Force Darwin, 6 months out of the year, Marine Rotational Force Southeast Asia, another 6 months out of the year inside the Philippines. And then you've got like persistent rotating forces in the Philippines as well. And then you got 3MEF, who's permanently stationed in Okinawa. And so that's the big thing right there between what 1MEF has on the West Coast and what 3MEF does in and from Okinawa is the key takeaway here. I'll pause there in case anybody's got kind of a question right now. I don't want to keep like droning on because as you notice, I go unscripted, which is always dangerous for the audience. It's not dangerous for me because I like doing it this way. But please stop me if you've got anything that you want to pause on. Go ahead. This is fully unclassified, so yes, this is fully shareable for everybody. Yeah, I know the question was earlier too about, can we have this? I got to catch a flight in a few hours, so I can't stay for the whole thing. Can I have access to this? Yes, going through all that. One other part of this, and you heard General Glenn talk about this morning, we're part of the JTF, like time out. Sometimes, PACOM calls us the Theater JFMC, the Joint Force Maritime Component Commander. Sometimes we are the Joint Task Force. At the end of the day, it all comes down to, the old adage, you got to practice like you play. You got to train like you're going to fight. In order to do that, you actually have to try and get together more than just like once a year or once every 6 months to actually run through your processes, your mechanisms, your functions, to be able to do that and do it effectively. Sure, you could show up and everybody can glom themselves together and run through, whatever it is that you're supposed to do inside of a battle rhythm, and then y'all go away and you don't do that again. That's not how you're supposed to do things. That's not how you get to an effective fighting force. And so you think about naval integration, doing that time now. So you think 3rd Fleet is in Southern California, 1MEF is in Southern California. They do a lot of stuff together throughout the year. 7th Fleet sits in Japan. 3MEF sits in Japan, doing things together all the time. You think getting together on Guam, elsewhere in Japan and the Philippines and other locations in the Western Pacific, again, is so that both 1MEF and 3MEF, with the operating concept of 2 MEFs abreast, can effectively do that, and they do that more than just every once in a while. And you'll always hear, I get a lot of feedback on this thing because this thing is on pretty good. I'm going to move this way over here. I know the running joke for most people is, I hear you before I can see you. Which is true, and I will fully own all that. So as we get into how do we do this and how do we do this better, and we've talked about this in a number of other different forums, is trying to get the capabilities, and that's the whole idea, with Project Dynamis, with the Dynamis RFI, with the Balikatan experimentation efforts and going through all that, is I need certain types of capabilities to be at certain echelon units so that they can train, practice, and rehearse every day and every week, not just intermittently. And so the whole idea is to do this as part of your daily job, not just what you do every once in a while. And so, yeah, before I turn it back over to Bob, just reiterate as we go through this, Bob mentioned MCP, the MACTAF C2 prototype, which Matissa has been working on for the better part of a couple of years. It started as like the C2 Mac MVP. It's just a box. Okay, I got hardware, but I want hardware agnostic. I need software that can run on that runs all of our really legacy programs of record that can also interact and integrate into whatever the Joint Force has. And so you think Joint Fires Network, JFN, that's part of it. We built that because JFN is only supposed to go down to a certain level. The MCP is for like echelon 4 and below to be able to interact with that. And you think our FITSI, and I'm an acronym monger, so if there's something that I don't spell out, like stop me and go, I don't know what the hell that means. You just did a whole sentence with nothing but 3 and 4 letter acronyms to be able to cycle that through. But our family of integrated targeting cells, you think running Minotaur on there, it's really for targeting and ingestion to go through all that. But that goes all the way down echelon. We have tactical exploitation nodes, all the way you go down to like what we call echelon 5 and echelon 6. You think about like 05 commands and below to go through all that, or 06 commands and below to go through all that, to have access to that, to interact in that ecosystem where you have certain types of a common operational picture, common intelligence picture, common tactical picture, which has target quality tracks on it, that is immediately shareable across an ecosystem. It can go up and down, not just up. And then working on the whole, what's under the IMN umbrella, what do we do for mission partner environment? How do I make sure that that is shareable with the partner, like machine to machine, data interaction, going through all that. And so I'll pause there. Oh, look at that. MLR. So just an example of what 3rd MLR, 3rd Marine Littoral Regiment, here on Hawaii, has been running with and working with. If you've seen like an iteration of this a couple of years ago, look nothing like it. Like here's what we thought it was going to be. Well, here's kind of what it looks like now as we look at how do we tie all these things in together. So you have unmanned systems, you've got theater overhead, you've got organic overhead, you've got things that are up in space, and how do we make sure that that has the capability to get downlink, ingested, processed, correlated, fused, and then put into some application that can go out across a broader network, regardless of network levels. So from SAR down to TS, down to secret, and then really, if you hear the term thrown out, SBUE, sensitive but unclassified, partner shareable. General Glenn talked about that already today. It's like, this thing comes in, it's got metadata on it, it shows where it came from and how it knows all these different things. I'm like, I just need this thing is at this location, lat long to 10 decimal places, and this is what it's classified as. It's this air element, it's this like maritime surface element. Sure.
Eric, take the outside. Appreciate all the connections you've got up there. That's an awesome slide. How much of the connectivity is actually working in order for you to be able to put the C2 piece on top of it?
The funny, a year ago, what is it? Well, that doesn't, this doesn't work. That doesn't necessarily work. That's not connected that way. That's not connected that way. When you think about what's going on at the component level, yeah, maybe not as good. Really, what it's got to come into is you see the JFMIC mock. The whole idea between what the Marine Corps is trying to do is all domain operations center tied in with the maritime operations center. Those things need to be connected. From the MEF level to a fleet, a numbered fleet mock. All those things tied into what the mock is at PAC fleet. The presumptive JTF at that level. But when you think about the things that the MLR COC is tied into, whether they're unclassed sensors or whether they're other types of sensors, that ingestion occurs time now. And then they've got the processing capability to do that on site, time now, and then feed that back into the ecosystem. I think, at least at this level inside of this room, they were successfully able to do that more than just a few times. I mean, anybody who's been part of Valiant Shield has seen the outputs of some of those. You know, we've got different down echelon units that are doing that, and they're doing it piecemeal. It's onesies and twosies, but they have shown that they can successfully do that, and now I need to scale. I need all those down echelon units to do that. Go ahead.
Okay, part two.
Well, I'm just going to add a little piece to your part one. To my bosses, I'm going to say a yes and, right? We can do it all right now. We can. But we also know that how we do it right now isn't necessarily resilient, isn't jam-proof, it risks PNT and other vulnerabilities. And so, yeah, we can absolutely do it at a time now. The other thing is, I think as you all make us smarter, because we give you a picture, and there's an assumption that there's an amount of compute at certain echelons within the MLR, or elements within the MLR. And we just don't know right now, because we don't know what the swap is, the trade-offs we're making, because we're not exactly smart on all the capabilities that you can bring to the fight. There are capabilities I learned this week that I wasn't tracking, and I never assumed that I might be able to have compute power at a certain point. And this week I'm walking away with, so that may change my C2 architecture or my C4 pipes.
Second part of my question. So a lot of green works together. What about the rest of the coalition partners you're looking? How is connectivity working for them at the physical layer? Recognizing that once you've got physical, now you've got the logical problem of what they fool.
Oh yeah, no, most of that is, there's a black X on it because it's a swivel chair.
So yeah.
It's a swivel chair, and anybody's familiar with that term, it's like, it comes in here, I can process it on my US system, but there isn't a machine-to-machine connection that allows me to do that yet, so I turn and I get on my coalition access one, and then I put that information inside of that.
Okay.
So that's where the break is.
Looking for information, you are then also swivel chairing in the other direction to get stuff out to them.
Yes, and that is true.
Right.
But that is the thing. I mean, cost-to-make solutions are real. I know that there are several out there that actually work, but it's not scaled. It's not on everything, and it's not at each echelon to be able to do that. Again, you know, we're able to successfully say that yes, we've operationally demonstrated that in this case, and in this case, and in this case. But I need all those cases connected all the time to go through that. So that is one of our challenges. Again, it's you know, time and stuff to be able to get that in their hands.
And if I may,
Go ahead,
someone said coalition. You know, I have to jump in anything coalition. Our real challenge really is policy. It's policy, manning, and training. So when we talk about coalition stuff, right, from a physical perspective or from even a data perspective, technically, I can connect to those people all day. I already know that, for example, the Australians use APFIT. I already know, for example, the Australians use VMF format or variable message format. We know that they can do that, but I'm not authorized to be able to send that data at the secret level, right? And until I get that authority, even if I have a cross-domain solution, I can't allow that information to pass. So that creates part of that initial swivel chair kind of activity. Like if I'm an operations officer and I'm there right now and I'm saying I can't get that information, I'm going to turn on and say, hey, somebody make that happen because they have information that I need, or I need to provide information for them to do a thing. So that's how that starts to happen. But once we start to identify those policy gaps, and that's what I think Dynamis is trying to get after, we can start to enable the service to start to connect episodically, because as the balloon goes up, it's not going to go up in a controlled way. It's going to be whoever's in the zone at the time, this is who I need to connect to, right? So I need to be able to do that, you know, at machine speed. So getting those policies in place is one thing. The second part about that is educating the force, the combined force of what everybody else has. You know, if I don't know what that system is, if I've never heard of it before, is my S6 going to allow me to put that on the network? Probably not. So we need to make sure that across the COCOM, you know, or at least in those particular areas of interest, right, that we have a shared understanding of what everybody else is bringing to the fight. So those are some things that we need to be able to do, and I think where our industry partners are absolutely valuable that space, you all have the ability to communicate with our allies and partners in a way that government does not, to elicit that information to help us inform our trade space. So I'll pause there. Over.
Here you go. Thanks, TJ. Talks a little bit about this. You know, we started talking about IMN and JFN and what Indo-Pacom, as the COCOM, is putting in place. And really, so just like has been discussed over the last couple of days and this morning, to be able to do this in a way where, as a service, we're not trying to come up with service-unique solutions. We always look towards the COCOM, much to headquarters Marine Corps dismay sometimes. We're like, I don't answer to you for operational requirements out here. I answer to a guy named Admiral Paparo and his staff and everything that they're trying to push out so that we can do that. And then, again, much to their dismay, tell the headquarters Marine Corps, this is what I need from you. Not your own, hey, I came up with these capability requirements, I'm going to put this through the process, and then I'm going to deliver you this thing that you may or may not have asked for. I'm like, no. My boss has several requirements memorandums signed by him that says, I need this, and I need this, and I need this, and I need this. And then I need them to come up with, plan of action and milestones, POA&M. What's your timeline? Who's responsible for that? And then when am I going to get it? I've referenced this before, and I said it this morning. Where's my money, and where's my stuff? To go through that. And so, it gets after this, but, legacy PORs still exist. So we're not going to stop using the things that we already have in place. If there are additive capabilities or enhanced capabilities or advanced capabilities that allow us to do that better, and we can get rid of a program of record, sure, we'll do that too. And we have memos signed by the boss that says that as well. But that takes a little bit of time to go through. But inside of that, to make sure that we can do this whole sense, make sense, and act to close kill webs, going through all that. And I think every keynote speaker, all the component commanders, deputy commanders, talked about tempo and lethality. How do we do that at speed and at scale to be able to do that? And then you see at the top, it is both lethal and non-lethal. You heard several of them talk about the fight is now in the information environment. When it does transition to something that's kinetic, we need to make sure that we have those things in place, but we need to be able to do the F2T2 EA process with both lethal and non-lethal effects. So we'll do all that. All right, we're going about 45 minutes. I'll let Bob jump into the next portion because, sandbox stuff.
That's right. So
how do we actually put things together so we can do this?
Yeah, so we've given a lot of thought, and I think last year we were starting to talk a little bit about disruptive acquisition, and that name's a little off-putting if I was a service-level 5-year fit-up guy, and it's not intended that way. There's money and resources allocated towards certain capabilities. We're not looking to change the capabilities we're going after. We're not changing the gap list. The gap list is what it is, and that's driving the fit-up. We're looking to get after it a little bit more aggressive, and when it makes sense, to reallocate within those programs. And so this was something we put together, and then it helped inform the Dynamis charter that put Colonel Smith and gave him the authorities to do all the things that he's going to do, particularly as he now takes that Dynamis and he nests it within Overmatch. So what does that do for you and I? What it does for you and I is it allows money to move in between programs of record because of the congressional authorities that were allowed Overmatch. And so that's how this all has been orchestrated. And so from our perspective, you see, we define we're doing requirements defining, RFI to industry. There's a little arrows that would go back and forth between that because as you make us smarter, it changes kind of like how our requirement should be written. And then it goes, so that informs, we begin to do some prototyping, whether that be through CRADAs, through hackathons, through BK26 experiments, or other operational experiments, because if you sent in a BK26 request to operationally experiment and we didn't accept it, It wasn't because we didn't think it was a good idea. What we need to do is go back to some of those that we told you, not this time, and figure out what operation we're going to use you and allow you to demonstrate those capabilities at. But anyhow, that's all part of this capability sandbox. This is allowing Arlen Smith and DCI and Headquarters Marine Corps a higher level of certainty to remove some of the concern they might have because of the speed of movement that we need to move to be able to gain the capabilities at the echelons that we need to and deliver those effects. And so this is kind of our perspective and what we've kind of massaged into the Dynamis charter in how to be agile, adaptive, and then be able to smartly go after some of those WILF, APFIT, and other proposals. Do I have any questions on this? I mean, because really, this is my proposal to you all too, as we team together to go after things. Yes, sir. I would like to say me, but I also know that I am fallible. So, I'm gonna. You know what? I'm gonna say myself, and Jeff. Where are you at, Jeff? All right, and you're gonna keep Jeff in the loop, and because it might be as simple as I could give him another name, someone on my team that could help do that iteration. Okay? Yes, sir. Any other questions?
With the Maven Smart Systems announcement that came out last month, did that go through a process like this?
Well, it did only because it's in operational use now, right? And it's, it may not have been intentional, but there is absolutely an iterative feedback loop from MARFORPAC and its two MEFs on Maven that informed that.
Yeah, guys, I would say yes, it did. Maybe not this exactly, but because of where Maven Smart System, its employment use at Indo-Pacific, at PAC Fleet, and then in some levels at each of the MEFs and at MARFORPAC, the demand signal back to Headquarters Marine Corps was like, I need this as an enterprise solution. I can't have, O&M funds, operations and maintenance funds from the MEFs or from the MARFOR to buy individual licenses. I mean, you get nickel and dimed, and I don't know if there's anybody in here from Palantir. Your stuff's expensive, but it is really good, which is why we're buying into it. So, it's one of those things. So, some of you have heard, I've been in the Marine Corps for 32 years. I'm on my third overtime. I got retired, came extended, not once, twice, but now 3 times. I don't have much of a filter, but the Marine Corps kept me around this long. It's their fault that I'm still here. They could have got rid of me at any time, but yes, I do say what's on my mind. I try not to pull any punches or, try not to hurt anybody's feelings, because my wife keeps me in check on that side. I have empathy and sympathy, but I usually don't share that when it comes to work like this. So if I hurt somebody's feelings, so far. But yeah, so it's good to see that the demand signal from the fleet and the operating forces, and not just the Marine Corps operating forces, has driven Service Headquarters to actually go, yep, we're going to make this a thing. And a lot of arm twisting and a little bit of foot dragging at times, but got it across the line.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you guys consider SIPR as a part of it?
SIPR? Yeah, well, so that's the preferred network to fight on. But I've done AI things that I know I need to have at higher levels that's only available at unclass, because it's still an iterative approach, right? It's still being able to, depending on what it is, to provide feedback to you to enable you to better ascertain whether you're going to put your own R&D into something or something like that. Yeah. The other box I'm going to call out here is the retiring box. Nobody likes to get rid of anything. We don't. It'll be in our cargo forever. But why I want to point that out is what's retiring? Retiring is money, right? And so as your OODA loop is thinking, and you go home from work and you're like, these idiots just don't get it. They could retire X, Y, or Z. Let's have that discussion, because we've sent, just like we sent requirements memos to the headquarters of Marine Corps, we send, hey, why don't we retire this thing to headquarters of Marine Corps too? And that's, I would feel better about going to the service and saying, hey, let's shift this capability to the left and let's sunset this one, right? And so that at least I'm not asking for a free ride.
Hey, Byron, that question.
Can you talk about the Shark Tank that you guys were pitching and where it fits in the loop here?
I'm sorry, what was I pitching? Oh, the Shark Tank. Yes. Okay. I'm really sorry that we had to cancel that. We're really fired up about that. And we're going to go into AI, the last portion of today, where we're going. The Shark Tank isn't in those slides, so I can't address it right now. So AI has different resources available to it, right? I've got a theater that wants to be AI yesterday. I've got a boss that wants to be AI yesterday, AI-driven yesterday. He wants to be predictive. He wants to do it now, and he's wondering what's taking us so stinking long. And so the idea about the Shark Tank was, I want to pull, if you got selected to brief on that Shark Tank, the reason why was that I want the components to be in the same room as me, and I want to go to the J81 and say, the four of us want this thing, and we want to do it now, and we want to scale it now. And we're going to have a plan, and we're going to have a method to do it. Like, I want to go with all my bubble gum in one bag, and that's what that Shark Tank is about. And the other thing is, it's going to feed the services generative AI event that's going to go after that. And so now I'm going both routes, and any other OPM you guys are bringing to us, right? So you're going to do your homework too.
One second. Just in case anybody needs CEUs, this session was approved for CEUs if you need that for certifications. Anybody? They're going to take the scanner in the back, so if you want to go put your information in right now before they take it, it's right in the back if anybody wants CEUs. We've asked for it.
We're going to break here in a few minutes.
I know. Well,
so.
I was going to say,
all right.
but because Bob needs to get his CEUs for your PhD.
Whatever.
Anyway, sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Just on the Shark Tank idea, are you tracking the Army's Fuse program and the X-Tank and Shark Tank approach they're taking? We saw them at AUSA in DC a couple of weeks, and they have this company pitch, and now they're taking them out. They're bringing them to Hawaii next week, I think, for experimentation. So I was wondering if you're linking up with them at all.
I was not tracking that.
Me either, no.
But did Mason leave yet?
Yeah, Mason was outside. I think he just left.
Yeah, if we could get the.
Probably to dig in on that.
Yeah, if you could help us get some of those details. Awesome, thank you.
Yeah. When we break, can you get that?
Amazing. Kate.
Hey.
Yep. And with that, let's take 10.
Hey, when we come back, we're going to go into the RFI. All right? Thank you.
Restrooms are to the left. Ladies' rooms to the left, and men's to the left, and then to the right.
Okay. Hey, thanks for all the return to the phase 2. Again, it's been a long week already. So the next phase, we're going to talk a little bit about MARFORPAC, the Dynamis RFI, the one that most of you responded to. If you didn't, this thing is a live, breathing RFI. You could submit the 15-page document anytime you want. If you, from industry, have something achieved an ATO and it didn't have one before, and so that was left out, again, you could submit a refresh to your information. It doesn't take us long to gonculate because we've got a formal codified process now, thanks to TJ. And so I'm quickly getting out of my depth because TJ tells me when I say something wrong, hey, we have a capability over here that does X, Y, Z. He's like, actually, we ran the numbers and it's over here instead or whatever. So TJ, thanks, brother, for taking the time and coming off a furlough to give us this information. We wouldn't be here today with this RFI if it wasn't for you. So I'll shut it up, turn it over to you.
Thanks, Bob, for that. Hey, one, I want to thank all of our industry partners that are here at the venue. It is critical as we move forward across the world. Across the world, you guys are seeing it, watching the same news I'm watching. Without that technology, without the insight, without the expertise that you all bring to the table, we wouldn't be able to do this. So, one, I want to thank you guys for that. Also want to thank, Sonny and Bob as well for their tireless support for some of the work that we're doing. This RFI thing is really an experimental approach to how we're doing some stuff. And if it wasn't for their advocacy in MARFORPAC in general, we wouldn't be able to have the kind of venues that we have and be able to do this and be business as usual. Again, thanks to AFCIA for hosting all of this as well. And then, again, I'll go into my background for those of you that don't know me. Hey, my name is Thomas Johnson. I go by TJ. I work at Marine Corps Tactical System Support Activity, Camp Pendleton, California. I am the Senior Principal Engineer for Combined and Joint Interoperability. I work primarily with our mission partners globally. I work with our Joint Task Force. And then I work with our special forces operators as well as in the sub community. So I work with those organizations to kind of figure out how that sub-soft SIF kind of ecosystem will look and where the Marine Corps lives from a data perspective of sharing data with all of those different equities concurrently. So gives me plenty to do. Again, I have my expertise is in C2 interoperability, NATO and StatAgs, system of systems integration, maritime integration with maritime and unmanned systems, agile frameworks for experimentation, and then we end up working on conducting some limited user evaluations. I'll talk about my background as much, not too much, but I want to give you all some perspective of where I'm coming from and why I see this as an important task. I started my career as a software engineer at General Dynamics, actually at Motorola, which became General Dynamics C4I, which is now General Dynamics Mission Systems, back in 1998 or so. I worked on the F-22. I worked on subs, doing radios for F-22, radio for subs, and then also working on the radio system, the comm system that would become Land Warrior. So worked on those programs. Then around 2003, I got a fantastic opportunity because I was the only person left to take a 3-month tour to Fallujah, Iraq, where I started work with a program called Unit Operations Center. Found my niche in that particular program. Ended up staying in Fallujah, Taqadum, all across Anbar province for about a year. Moved on from that to another program that some of you may know, Command Post of the Future, CPOF. I was on that, and ended up overall staying in Iraq and Afghanistan from 2004 to 2009 straight, bouncing between the two as the CPOF theater lead or as the COC theater lead, depending on which contract I was on. Around 2009, I found a nice woman that said, "Hey, I'll marry you. You're not that weird." So she was like, "But you know what you're not going to do? You're not going to continue to do that work anymore." So found an opportunity to move over to MCTISA and lead up engineering efforts there. Did that for about 10 years on the COC program. Shook hands and crossed swords a lot of times with Bob Schultes as he moved through the places, but always has been a great advocate for me there. And then ended up in my last couple of months, if you remember last year, I was leading Dynamis efforts as the chief scientist, bringing some of the stuff together as it was maturing, and now that has kind of matured into a thing. I've transitioned off of kind of core Dynamis work and gone back into really this C2 combined integration work. So that's kind of where I am today. So, and then also between that, also working the RFI pieces and doing the industry engagement, which I enjoy. But the reason I bring that whole long-winded background together is that understanding coming from industry, it's very odd that you go from industry into government. Where I was as I was moving into business development, understanding business cycle, understanding the pressurization that's happening in the business side, gives me a level of empathy for our industry partners on what they're trying to get after. And I know that to Bob's earlier statement, those of you in the room believe that you all have a capability that will solve a problem, and we need to honor and respect that effort that you all are putting forward. So I don't know where we are on the slides, but we'll go to the next slide. I don't know. It's slide 20 for me. Are you guys on that one? It should be.
Yep, we're right on slide 20.
Okay, good. Hey, for those of you that are taking pictures or what have you, please copy down the number up there. That's the RFI number. So if you go into sam.gov, you put that in, you should be able to find the RFI. It'll be archived, so you can pull that down. But again, use that as your rubric for any responses that you have. So again, I'm not going to read from this, but what I will tell you here, for the most part, again, this is a effort led by MARFORPAC. MCTISA is in support because we're support activity. Again, the purpose of this, and this is what I think we, again, to Bob's point earlier, you know, we've kind of learned as we go, and kind of, you know, we had a very grand vision of what we're going to do with this RFI, and over time it's kind of normalized. But really, I think the purpose of this was really, and we achieved this, is to get that comprehensive market intelligence and identify and engage promising partners. So I think that's where we are today. And I want to talk about in this other piece here, the smaller piece, the strategic benefits, all of those are important. But what I want to really talk about is the part about rapid market intelligence, right? It allowed us, this RFI process allowed us to map out the technology landscape. And again, without procurement timelines, protests, and formal evaluation processes, that allows us to allow a larger base of the DIB to participate in this, right? So we didn't want to price ideas out, and sometimes you're doing that, and so we didn't want to do that. We also, again, smart risk management. It allows us, by submitting that RFI, that gives us an official mechanism for industry and the government to have engagements about a technology. Right. So what we, you know, and if anybody's been in a contract protest before, it's probably one of the worst and most invasive feelings you can ever have. Again, what we wanted to be able to do is have a solid framework to say, hey, we're engaging them from this data point, as opposed to, hey, my buddy just retired and he works for this company that has this really good thing, and we went out for beer together, and then the competitor saw us because we were at AFCIA together, and they made some assumptions, things like that. So this allows us to normalize and allows us to have these open conversations around a common subject. So that makes it easier. That reduces the risk on all sides, right? And then the other part about this as well is it allows us to expand the innovation base. Again, 191. So the total is 206. We'll talk about that a little bit, but we had 191 independent submissions, right? Again, allowed us to look at the companies and those small companies and companies that we don't typically look at, because they may not have the shiniest, kiosk, right? They may not know the right people. They may not be in the right space at the right time, right? They may not be local to a military base where they have that access. So it allowed us to look at a much broader, broader base. We also looked at international partners as well, right? You're not going to be able to do that in an RFP or an RFQ. So it gave us a much broader space to look at. So that's that piece there. So next slide, please. Well, I'll pause again. Any questions on any of that I just talked about? All right, I'll keep it moving here. So again, everybody loves metrics. You can't manage what you can't measure. So metrics is what it is. So here's kind of what we look at, right? So we had 191 submissions. 72.2% of those were relevant to Project Dynamis. So if you look at what we kind of put out there, laid out in the RFI, right, more than the majority were demonstrated, relevance to that, right? 19.9%, about 20%, demonstrated limited understanding of Dynamis, and then 7.9 were deemed not relevant. So let's talk about this from an RFI perspective, and not necessarily from what you're seeing on this paper there. Because this, again, where we want to go, and again, we'll talk about why we haven't gotten where we want to go in later slides. Because someone had a limited understanding or deemed not relevant, that doesn't mean they're out of the box. That means that maybe this is an opportunity for us to engage with those vendors and say, hey, here's what you submitted. Hey, this is what we're really asking for, and to get them an opportunity to kind of recop, because they've invested regardless of where they ended up in there. They invested time and money to put together a good idea. So we want to be able to have that conversation, and you can't do that in an RFP, and you can't do that in RFQ, right? If you were in that 19 or that 7.9, you're donezo, right? So all of your investments were for naught. Inside the RFI, that gives us an opportunity to have that conversation. And when we get to a point where we're going to start having those conversations. Again, 191 submissions. The reason you see that 206 in parentheses, we had multiple vendors submit different proposals, right? So we had about, what is that? We had over 10, 15 or so give multiple proposals. So we kind of went back and forth on this and kind of said, hey, is that in the spirit of the RFI? Because, again, right, if you're a company that can put together 4, 5, 6, 7 proposals and shoot them out, great. But if you're struggling to get one out, is that is the playing field, did we leverage the playing field easily? So what we did was we evaluated all 206 of them, but we put into our rubric or into our database 191. So we looked at the best submission of some of those other ones. But as we move forward, we'll probably tighten up on that a little bit. That's a lesson learned there. Another part about this, right? You can see here the small businesses, right? 85 of those submissions were small businesses. This is a personal point of pride for me that we were able to get those small businesses to engage and put some really good work in there. Data point again, how we use this data. Again, we look at BK26, 82% of the experimentation selections submitted to the RFI. Now, was there a one-for-one relationship to that? No, not necessarily. However, the fact that we saw the list of those in experimentation space, and we were able to look at what those RFI submissions, we go back to the experimentation team and say, hey, when you're engaging with this partner, look at X. Hey, when you engage this partner, look at Y. Can you follow up on this? Right. So we're able to make better conversations between our experimentation leads and our vendors, right? Because they're talking from a common framework. So this is things that we want to expand on, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. We'll talk about, again, a lot of strong ones. We saw a lot of partnership. So we saw, and that came out of what we did with the Allied Data Sharing Conference, which was really a unique way to kind of get industry together. We actually didn't write the RFI until after. We were writing the RFI real time. As the partners, as those companies were talking together, converging, coming up with ideas, we were taking those ideas from industry and said, okay, let's build our RFI on this. So really industry built their own, they wrote their own ticket, if you will. So that was, watching that partnership is really good. And that's something I would offer to this group. Look for complementary partnerships and see if you all have the capacity to deliver kind of those, bring those in one package. The more integrative a package it is, I think the more amicable, the government is going to be like, hey, you're giving me, you're doing some of my homework for me. I like that. The impact of AI. So again, we kind of talked at the beginning, 191 submissions. That's a lot of work. That part of our stuff that freaked out a lot of people. Like, how are we going to review 191 submissions? How are we going to get their feedback? So what I did was I worked on some AI and ML, used some different models, built some prompts, and we were able to process those. We were able to process 109, actually all 206, 206 of those in 12 hours. And the model the model and the prompts I'm using is 2 minutes per submission. So again, when Bob was saying send your stuff, your 15 pages, I'm able to go back and have the model give me an assessment in about 2 minutes. So that's powerful. Again, what we saw a lot of AIML, cybersecurity, zero trust. You guys can see their stuff at the bottom, but that was where the bulk of that work is. So next slide, please. So on this next slide, again, as Bernice and as Jeff will know, I say this every time, all hail the cube, right? If you're going to take a picture of anything, take a picture of this. This is how we understand all domain. This is 21st century single joint battle concept. And this is what we talk about when we talk about all domain command and control, right? It is about those warfighting domains It is about the warfighting functions, and it's about that echelon of command. So when you think about your capabilities or your products, right? Where does it live in this space? Does it live in the cyber environment? Does it live in command and control? What echelon of command is it looking at, right? Are we looking at the echelon 3 where the MAR4 is? All right. Are we looking at MEF level, division level? Where are we looking at? So being able to articulate that is super valuable, and being able to come and say, hey, here's where I am in your all domain matrix. This is where I think I add value, right? Being able to do that and be able to communicate in that, and using the language that's on this box and communicating your capability in that language is going to be terribly valuable for to our operating forces, right? So kind of you look here on the other side, you can kind of see where our future prototype scope. Not going to go over all of that, but contested logistics, that's kind of some stuff that we didn't see a lot of. We didn't see a lot of logistics integration in our submissions. We didn't see a lot in force protection. We didn't see a lot in USX integration. We didn't see a lot in naval integration. So these aren't bad things because everybody was writing to their strengths, but these are areas, these are opportunity areas for us there. And then I'll also talk about, the man, train, and equip piece. So when you talk about bringing in a capability, also talk to me about how the Marine Corps can train to that capability. Because hey, I could be bringing a new capability. I could be replacing a current capability with a more robust capability. But I'm still going to have to train those Marines. So if at the end of the day this has to be usable, you can wow and amaze guys like myself and Bob all day. But if a 19 to 24-year-old Marine cannot operate, install, configure, maintain, and defend that capability, it's not a capability. So think about it from that perspective. Look at your target user, right? And how are you going to build in a training plan with your capability that makes it seamless for them to be able to operate, to install, configure, operate, maintain, and defend, right? So if you heard me again, install, configure, operate, maintain, and defend. Those are 5 data points, right? I call that the fist strategy. You want to punch somebody in the face, you need a fist. And those are the 5 things that we need from a C2 perspective to be able to punch our enemies in the face. Our Marines need to be able to do those 5 things, and it needs to be muscle memory. And I'll pause there. Any questions? Okay. Nothing heard there. So, hey, on the next page here, so we'll talk about that immediate end state. And this is where we are today. The 3 key points out of that: map, identify, and assess, right? We map the art of the possible. We understand from our submissions kind of what's out there. We have the ability to identify the players, right? Who's the innovators, who's in there from large and small, right? How do we get to those guys? And then we're able to do some initial assessment of what we believe the TRL could be. Those follow-up conversations with industry are going to help us to mature that a little bit with our industry partners. But we're able to say, based on the model that we have, hey, based on the submission, it looks like it has this level of TRL. That allows us to go back to our experimentation teams. Well, we will be able to do this in the future, go back to our experimentation teams and say, hey, here are the things that we are assessing at this level. You may want to follow, we will want to follow up to see if that aligns with where we are. And then we can start to target where that technology can go based on the level of technology readiness that our experimentation community is willing to accept. So next slide, if you don't mind. So this is really the intermediate state, and I think we'll be able to get after some of this in FY26, right? Filter that signal from the noise, right? We need to start figuring out on, hey, where are those candidates for the different warfighting functions, warfighting domains, capabilities, right? Where are those ones we want to look at, right? Then we want to start initiating that prototype and experimentation. BK is kind of the start of that, but what we want to get after, at least from my perspective, I want to start looking at all of those exercises. And again, taking kind of my perspective where I live in the MCTISA space, vice of MARFORPAC space, is I'm looking at experimentation globally and saying, hey, can I do some work over here? In fact, a lot of work that we did was really in EUCOM in Poland, in Big Gosh, Poland. We did some stuff for coalition warrior experiment. So a lot of the stuff that we learned over there in CWIX, over there with the Polish, over there with Ukraine, over there with our NATO partners, Five Eye partners, we're able to take that, synthesize, and figure out what's applicable to Indo-PACOM, right? Because if the Brits are going to be over in EUCOM, obviously, right? They also have a presence in Indo-PACOM. Understanding how they're operating in both spaces is valuable to Indo-PACOM and what they need to do. And again, right, through those prototypes and experimentation, we want to start doing some evaluation, limited user evaluations. That's really we're going to start to try and tie in those program offices and say, hey, we found a thing. It looks pretty good. It's gone through some of our prototype experimentation. We'd like to see if you're interested in doing some limited experimentations with that. So again, those are discussions that are happening, and hopefully we'll get to see some of that in 26. Again, ultimate end state, right? Accelerate and inform modernization, right? Filter, advocacy, accelerate, right? So we want to get those. We want to filter out the data from from all those experiments and prototypes. Feed that back to our key decision makers, DCI, CDNI, program managers, the MAR4s, or what have you. Say, hey, we've gone through 200 iterations of this. We've seen 200 submissions. We've gone through 15 experiments. We have seen this level of technology mature from here to here. Here are the 3 things that you need to get after based on your requirements, your gap list, your AOR, right? Here's the data that's consumable at the decision maker level. Then again, this is where MARFORPAC. This is where Colonel Hussey, Bob Schultes, completely super valuable in advocacy, right? There really it's going to be those MAR4s and their senior leaders are going to say, hey, I need to advocate for this. We need to determine, we know the mission, we know the environment, we know where we can inject this new technology, right? We can fix what we have, or do we need to pivot to a new technology because we've got the body of evidence here, right? And then from there, once we get those, again, getting the General Flynn's of the world in that space of saying, hey, I need to go talk to my peers and figure out how we can accelerate. Again, the vision for the Marine Corps is the JTAC of the Joint Force, right? Fully aligned with our force design guidance, CJASP2, Overmatch, Convergence, Olympus, Oracle, these types of these longer term kind of initiatives that are floating around the DoD. So I'm going to go back a little bit. So we're going to talk about I'm going to tell you something that we usually don't do. We don't tell you how you're assessed. I'm going to show you exactly how you were assessed. So again, you can see here, again, what you see on the left-hand side is that the technical capability areas, right? That was
what slide are you on, TJ?
I am on slide 26, I believe. Should be a table with yellow. Should be something with highlight yellow on the. You got it?
Yeah, I do. And actually, so while we're shifting to that phase, I want to remind everybody that you're going to get a copy of this video in the next week or so. You're going to get a copy of the slides, and you're going to be able to go back to and say, hey, in Initiate, you said you were going to do APFITs and CRADAs. The one thing I would say as we're going into this next piece, what I wish I had, and I don't have it, and maybe one of you do, what is the submission timeline for all the different OSD pots of money, all the S&T pots of money, all the R&D pots of money, and how can we matrix that and then with that matrix sheet and plan of attack, look for J81 or other folks that might have some fillers to fill in that plan, and that's kind of where my mind is as we shift into this next phase. Because until now, it's just been an ad hoc. Oh, there's an APFIT. Okay, how many proposals do I want to send to OSD? How many do I want to send to the service? How many do I want to send to Indo-PACOM and act like I'm only doing one at each one or something? We want a combined approach, and I don't have that list. I don't have the timeline. I haven't gotten there yet, but Jeff's going to get it for us. All right. Okay, we're on your slide, TJ, at the assessment criteria 1.
Yep. So in here, everybody. So again, on the left-hand side here, this was what was in the RFI. So that's the information that you all had available to you. So the next one, warfighting functions. So you were assessed against the technical capability areas. You're assessed against the warfighting functions. So again, publicly available for those of you that are not Marines or have not been Marines. There's a acronym, MCPD, Marine Corps Doctrinal Publication. So if you do not know that term, please write that down. Marine Corps Doctrinal Pub. They go from 1 to 8. MCPD 1 is warfighting. MCPD 2 is intelligence. MCPD 3. Gosh, I'm gonna get caught up here and show my ignorance. But either way, you all can look at that publicly available. Again, these are the domains and echelons. We said, hey, how is this technology valuable to that domain, to that, the air domain, land domain, surface, subsurface, space, cyber, information environment, communications, right? So all that information, right? If you look at Marine Corps warfighting pubs, MCWPs, right? They talk about cyber, they talk about communications, they talk about surface, subsurface, all of that publicly available. Again, here are the things that we highlight in yellow. These things are relevant. Those things are relevant specific to your RFI submission, right? So those things are the things that are unique to each submission, except for the TRL, right? So again, we looked at our model, looked and assessed your submission and said, based on how TRLs are defined, this looks like a TRL 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever the case may be. So that's kind of how we looked at those things. So each submission, and with the other part you see here down at the very bottom, is relevance to other services, departments, and agencies. So that part, so when you submitted this RFI to us, we are not just saying, hey, this is inside the Marine Corps. Our model goes back and says, hey, that might be relevant to Veterans Affairs. It might be relevant to the Forestry Service. It might be relevant to the IC community. It might be relevant to something else. So as we identified those things, as we did people closest to the boat, to the Army, Marine Corps, the Army, Navy, Special Operations, right? As we had those touch points, we shared that information with those departments and services and agencies to say, hey, we found something. It may not be a fit for Dynamis, but it clearly is a fit for what you do. Maybe you all want to take a look at this. So some of the engagements, and again, our intent is not to have a direct touch line, or a touch point between the RFI and that industry partner or that department. But what we wanted to do is shift this over. So if you are getting contacted about some of you may have been getting cold calls or what have you, that might be because a department or a service or a unit says, hey, I'm interested in that. So we are trying to share that so that the benefit for everyone is you don't have to put in another submission, right? Because you can just use the one that you already have. And again, like Bob said earlier, these submissions don't die. We have them in a database. We're managing those in a database, and we want to be able to continue to go back to those and share those as relevant. So next slide, please, sir.
Yep.
So now here's what we did. We used a series of LLMs, Nipper GPT, Camel GPT, a couple other GPTs that we did. That was our base model. That was our base model to be able to do these capabilities. And we built a number of agents on top of it. The agents that we built is we built the RFI response assessment agent, R2, what we call R2A2. It basically, we built it as a FAR-based analyst, right? It assessed each one of those. It did the initial assessment of each one of those submissions against the 38 categories, right? It provided technical trends across the submissions, and then it required strict RFI format compliance. So if your document didn't comply with the guidance in the RFI, it would typically reject it. So we had to play with the model a little bit to be able to do that. But it did give us, instead of rejecting it, it gave us a warning, said, hey, this one's out of scope or whatever the case may be. We also had, on top of that, we had another agent that we called VOps, a virtual operations officer. So we built this prompt off of the bios of multiple operations officers or former operations officers. And then it gave a unique perspective to the R2A2 on what it saw on those RFIs from an operational perspective. So we gave that particular prompt the expertise and the behavior model of a senior leader, a lieutenant colonel that has expertise in the MLR, has expertise against maritime domain, and then it would give feedback back from an operational perspective or operational perspective. We also, again, a couple things we did was, again, we reformatted the information, normalized the data. We normalized, because our model was changing or our prompts were changing over time. The people that got evaluated at the beginning didn't have the same kind of evaluation as those at the end because we were learning. So we built another tool called the RFI score normalizer. So we took all those assessments and then normalized all of the scores to make sure that they were being evaluated against a common framework by the different, the different iterations of those prompts. And then the last one we did was the Rapora. So that is the RFI partner identification and ITAR origin risk assessment. So we took each one of those. We looked at who they were partnered with. We looked to see, hey, are they, what the companies are partnered with, or organizations, or were they in a did they have any foreign influence? Were they working? Did they have any ITAR concerns? Did they have any relationships with adversarial nations like Japan? I'm not Japan. I'm sorry, like China, like Iran, like North Korea, like Russia, or any of their satellite countries that are around them. So that allowed us, again, to get an idea of, hey, here are some areas that we need to be concerned about. And again, this is the beauty of the RFI. We were able to take that information. We'll be able to take that information, feed it back to be able to help these industry partners kind of course correct in a lot of things, as appropriate. So again, some of these things, again, if you just submitted and you had, let's say that you bought, a part, not from a nefarious perspective, but you bought a part from, an adversarial nation, just as part of your, as you do, right? That could eliminate you from an RFP and RFQ, right? That's going to be an automatic disqualification. But within the RFI perspective, we have an opportunity to go back and say, hey, instead of a vendor X, maybe you should look at supply vendor Y, because that aligns with where we're going. So those are some things we looked at. Next slide, please, sir. So again, kind of industry perspective, upsides, downsides. Again, I'm not going to go through this entire list here, but again, I'm a proponent of the RFIs. The lower barrier to entry. It kind of leveling the playing field. Right, it's an all hands on deck scenario that we have going on if we look at the global environment. So we can't afford to exclude folks because they don't know how to get into the system. Right. Early customer engagement, market positioning, right? So there's a lot of benefits there, but also there's some downsides, right? There's no guaranteed return. So that's something that you have to consider, that it might just get sucked in, and it may not come back out. Again, you'll have to manage that free consulting risk, right? How much do you want to invest in this? Resource drain, IP concerns. The IP concerns was really a big part for us. We were really flummoxed on how do we make sure that if we're going to create this database and create this database of all these different vendors, how do we protect the IP? And that's been a lot of work that we've been doing with our contracts and our FAR-based experts to make sure that we're storing the information and disseminating the information in a way that meets our compliance with that proprietary data. So,
yeah,
and again,
to TJ's point, I wanted to take this, and I still do, and I still have conversations based off of the information here with the joint staff, but I wanted to drive the joint staff with this. I don't think anybody's ever taken the time to really coalesce what industry is capable of, and some of that combined effects, and have that discussion and drive decision points with the joint staff, so that the ripple effects come on down and then drive acquisition. And it's kind of, maneuver. It's Marine Corps maneuver, and that's what we were trying to do.
Yep, that's exactly right. So let me talk about the challenges about this, right? This has been a unique year. So, we had the deferred resignation program, DRP, fork in the road, right? We had 2 of those. Clearly, we're living in a government shutdown as we have now, the funding uncertainty. So that DRP really impacted us, as a lot of those expertise that we needed to kind of do some of these reviews, they left the service, they left government service, and the service had to, everybody was scrambling, right? We had to prioritize core functions, right? There's parts of, within the Marine Corps, 20 to 30 30% of their staff gone, right? So if you've lost 20 to 30% of your staff, you don't have the bandwidth to say, hey, let's work with you guys on this RFI thing and look at 200 submissions, right? I need to figure out if I can actually meet my mission, so there's a lot of that was going on. So, as we normalize, I have a high confidence that we will normalize, we'll be able to get back on track. Key example here is that we had our order rep who ran our CRADAs for Marcor Syscom. We have two. We have one at McTissa, and then we had one at Marcor Syscom. So the Marcor Syscom order took the DRP, and then all of that work, because there was no other order in Marcor Syscom, all that work went to McTissa. At the time, McTissa had we were servicing 6 CRADAs with a guy that just got his order designation 2 weeks prior to this. He went from 6 CRADAs to 47 CRADAs overnight, and he had to manage he's still managing those right now, right? And there was no handover. So that's kind of the thing that we're looking at. So it's kind of like, hey, we've only got one order for Marcor Syscom. We're probably going to slow down on these CRADAs till we figure out what's going on in these 47. So that's kind of what's happening there. Again, as I kind of mentioned to before, the RFI approach was experimental in itself. Again, we were moving super fast. We were trying to get there. We wanted to get with industry, but there's no process around it. So a lot of people that were in key decision makers, like, hey, how do I manage this over time? How do I manage this over time? And we really didn't have at least where I live, didn't have a way to answer how we're doing over time. Like, look, I just want to get this done one time and it'll work, and we have to do it again. But everybody's looking at how we sustain this. So that work has also been happening in the background. Again, I think Bob mentioned this again. We failed to coordinate with the experimentation community. I think we're getting there. I think we're there now. But I think where I really want to take this as we move forward is, hey, how do we get this to the experimentation community globally and say, here's a pot of capabilities that you can look at over the course of the year, and how do you want to align these capabilities within your experiments, and how do you all want to reach out and then have those engagements? So, excuse me. I think if we get to that next year, that's going to be a major win. And then the last part here, and then we talked about that again, service guidance was still forming around Dynamis. So where we started was not where Dynamis had ended up. So it's gone through multiple iterations, and I think now that we have service, it's a program of record within the service. We have firm guidance, coming from the Commandant of the Marine Corps and the ACMAC. We kind of know where our left and right lateral limits are, and we're positioning ourselves within that guidance. So wanted to give you guys kind of at least my take of that. So I'll pause for any questions that we have there. Okay, last slide. This is the last slide, and this is kind of where this is the last one here. So this is at least my view of the way ahead, right? So I think next 60, 90 days, pending when we get back off of this shutdown madness, right? I want to fast track human review and solution assessment, right? So the one thing that I want to tell you all is that the assessments that we've done, that's what the model has assessed. I don't want to reach out to any industry partner until we've had humans put eyes on it and those duty experts look at it, right? Because the model is just is a model. I want to get some human subjective and objective expertise from those subject matter experts, uniform civilian subject matter experts before we go back out. So we need to do that. So that, again, that'll help us to identify those highest value solutions. So know that when we reach back out to you all, a human has looked at this. A human has touched this. A human has put human expertise on this, because we can't do this. Warfighting is a human endeavor, so we need to be able to make sure humans are part of that. Next part, at the operational level, right? We want to take this AI toolkit and then build continuous innovation pipeline, right? So a couple of actions there. Again, being able to review proposals in 2 minutes, right, to get a model and start that information, that gives a lot of bandwidth back to everyone, and that will allow for some speed and for some acceleration there. So we want to be able to. I think that the prompts and the model that we put together are very valuable to other science and technology reinvention labs, acquisition agents, and things like that. So those are some things I want to get after. And then my other goal as well is to establish a reoccurring targeted RFIs annually. So again, what we're looking at from what you saw in our in our proposal in the RFI, if you have seen a copy of it, that was a snapshot in time of the challenges that we had at that time, right? I want to be able to look at as the gap list evolves. We want to be able to bring out other capabilities, or other small, smaller, larger, doesn't matter. Look at those things and then send those out and say, hey, we need to look at this, and then we start to do that in an annual way that allows for some consistency, some normalcy, and that way you all can plan against, industry can plan against that, and then finally, again, informing those major acquisition decisions, right? And then you see below here, what I see as success is that, time from flash to bang, right? We were introduced to vendor A in this date, and then we're seeing this capability, the capability that they promoted is now in the hands of operational units on this date, right? Before it was a 3-4 year process. Are we now doing that in a year? Are we doing that in 6 months? Are we doing that in 90 days, right? How can we get that? How can we reduce that time to get that information or get that capability into the hands of those warfighters, right? And if we don't use that metric, if we're not using that metric, then I think we're going to fail in this task. I think it's not valuable if we have to do, number one, I don't think we have time, but I don't think it's valuable for us to think we've got to do a 2-3 year iteration process. And then, things change, you got to start all over again. We need to get into a faster decision cycle on these capabilities. So that's my last slide. Again, thank you everybody for showing up. I wish I could be there with you. And again, where, if you find me, I'm on LinkedIn. I'll make sure we get that out if somebody's looking to connect with me. Happy to connect, happy to share information. And again, appreciate everyone's time. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
So does that mean that all the 191 submission, the goal is in the next 60-90 days that we will be receiving your assessment? Is that
Did you hear that question, TJ?
I did. The question, if I heard it, was would they be receiving feedback on our assessments within the next 60 to 90 days?
That's right.
That's my goal. So I need to, when we get back off furlough, that's what I'm going to be working after to get that out there. I think it's important for us to be able to do that.
Then I have a follow-on question, Jay. The submission was submitted in March. Since then, a lot of our capability has been, we are doing, like on the industry side, we're including our capabilities. So it's almost a year. So what we submit back in March, what's the process of that iteration? Like we can say now we have a lot more capability now, but you're still assessing the submission we did in March.
That's a great question. Go ahead, TJ. You got it.
I love that question. I love it so much. Because you have submitted to the RFI, right? It's not an RFP and it's not an RFQ. This is not closed. You can say, in support of the RFI, we have made some changes and we would like to submit our updates to the RFI because it's been a while, right? You are more than welcome to do that, and we are more than happy to reassess based on what's happened in the last year. We recognize that, and there's an understanding that your capabilities would have matured in the last year.
So
sir.
Follow on to that.
Yes.
Do you want just the delta of what changed, or do you want the whole thing so you're updated so your AI model can run its magic?
So I would offer to give us a delta of the change, because we don't want you to generate a whole new thing, right? We already know where you started. If you just say, hey, we submitted X, here's a delta from X to Y, that's fine, and then we'll rekey our model to be able to account for that.
Is there going to be a limit, a page limit, like there was on the original RFI semester? I mean, that's the danger you run into by just having an addition.
Yeah, I would offer to keep it limited. I'm going to say 15 pages. Again, the same 15 pages or less. I don't want to get into 30, 40, 50 page things. Keep it super targeted. 15 pages is fine or less, because it should really just be a delta. So that's what I would offer in this form.
And does that get routed to the
Yeah, so the question is how do they submit that, TJ? And I'm wondering if maybe we come out of here today and you and I figure out and send out an email to all the respondents, two, all the people that attended here today with an actual process, the email account that it should go to, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we can do that. And then I would offer to them, again, inside the RFI itself, it does have an email address to find out. There's a point of contact on that RFI. You can email that person at any time to find out where you are. So again, this is, and I'm going to continue to hammer this. This is an RFI. It's not an RFP or an RFQ. You can ask them every single day what's happening, right? You can do that if you'd like. Well, that's why you can do it every single day.
Yes, sir.
To clarify, I thought I heard earlier that we had to submit it again, or still.
Absolutely. If you.
Should not expect maybe feedback timeline.
If you submit, you will still get feedback. I don't know what the timeline on that. So yeah, we're talking about new submissions, TJ. I don't want to hold them to the same. You may be back of the line, but you'll get feedback.
Yeah, you'll get feedback, and again, those things will come in as an unsolicited proposal. I mean, that's just really what it is. Again, you can do an unsolicited proposal any day of the week. What the difference is now you have a point of contact. If you use the same points of contact for that RFI, then you can do an unsolicited. Say, hey, we saw this. We have an unsolicited proposal, right? We think this is a good capability. We'd like to submit this, and then it'll go through. Again, it'll just be counted as an unsolicited proposal, but. The big thing really for everybody is we want to get your capabilities into the database so we can reference it over and over again. That's really what we're talking about.
Any concerns from that, right? Because we're having this dialogue now.
There's this strategic alignment on the timeline. Does there align to what DCI is working in programming? So I think they're calling like 18 months evolution on Project Dynamis. Is that 18 months plus? So is this when you talk about this evolution of bringing technology forward and so forth, but is that 18 months really aligned? Because I think that's the case, aren't they?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and TJ, I'm sure is going to jump in too. But I'm going to tell you that we're informing now. We're not forming 18 months from now. I think TJ's probably talking things that after the first shot down range from DCI. But go ahead, TJ. Your thoughts.
Yeah. So we're informing at real time, right? So it's not at 18 months. I'm just saying within that window, right? Within these different windows, right? How do we, how do we get there? And again, we have to. I will tell you, the industry part is the easiest part of this, right? Working inside the service ecosystem and making sure you're getting the right stakeholders and the right approvals. That's really where we have to kind of do the work. And so it's not an industry thing per se. It's the nature of where our authorities lie. And again, more importantly, the authorities where MCTISA lies. Again, I'll continue to say this as well. MCTISA is a support activity. It's not a decision activity. So our role is always going to be in support. So you'll hear something from me, a TJ or what have you. I'm like, hey, great idea. We can get after this. But again, we fall up under MARCOR Syscom. MARCOR Syscom's underneath CDNI, so on and so forth. So we need to make sure that we are aligning those essentially our recommendations to the right stakeholders, and that's going to again, each organization has its own priorities. So how do I make my priority their priority? Well, that's really by making their priority my priority.
Well, and to your point, your question is, really this was a MARFORPAC RFI. It wasn't a MCTISA RFI. So the information, we use it every day in our discussions with Colonel Smith and others in driving programmatics, right? So to me, it's been in use since the day you submitted it, since I got the first draw from TJ.
Yep.
From our J7 friends.
So one question, is there a way to track which companies would be interoperable with each other, or which companies?
I love that question. I love that question. I was hoping we were going to do a live demo today because TJ's modeled it out exactly how you asked that question. But TJ, over to you.
Oh my gosh, fantastic question. So that's one of the things that we want to, I think when we get to another space, we can start looking at how we model some of the stuff out and looking at those relationships. But so we have two sets of submissions. We have submissions that were high on teaming, right? So they're building their stuff as interoperable, and then we had another set that were kind of individual capabilities that you could, if they were organized correctly, could be integrated with other solutions. For example, let's say you have a C2 application, right? It needs a hardware platform, and then we need some transmission, right? Typically, those are three separate industry partners, right? We saw a lot of work where those industry partners were working together, and then we saw other ones where they were kind of, operating independently. But as we look at those capabilities and figure out, hey, we want to smash A, B, and C, we have the opportunity to now look at it have a visualization, look at it, and be able to we could shape that kind of that work with industry, and if industry wants to invest and partner and leverage their own IRAD to get after some of this work, that would be able to give us a capability that we can get handed to us as opposed to us having to do the integration on the other post contract award.
Any other questions on the RFI or for TJ?
I have a question more on, so you're collecting massive amount of technology with a lot of incredible things that can happen. Folks that don't get into submission, are you sharing that with the G6 or other, how are the capabilities being interlocked so that industry gets some of that feedback, or do you know what I'm saying?
So are we sharing this data carefully? Yes. Very carefully, yes. I am a proponent of leaning forward into driving the joint staff, driving the service, and using this data to educate us to do it. I'm also, what we haven't done yet, and I want to do, is I want to pull my fellow CIOs, CTOs, CDAOs in a room and have a full deep dive driven by TJ, but we're trying to make sure that the right NDAs are signed, that we're following the right legalities, because while I want to lean forward, I'm reminded by TJ that this is not my IP, it's your IP. And so we're trying to thread that needle carefully. And so, this is all, everything you submitted is acquisition sensitive, and I treat it as such, but at the same time, so while I can drive from a component and even an Indo-PACOM's perspective, we need to go this direction because this is where the technology lies, making sure that we give your data and treat your data with the respect that and security that we should. So, yes. What other part of your question did I not answer?
I think you answered it.
Okay.
The only thing which is, how are you providing that insight and feedback back to industry?
So, TJ, how would you, besides feedback on the RFI itself, which I think we said we're going to try to get you in the next 60 to 90 days.
So you're collecting all this information, right? So
yeah.
There's ready now, and there's capabilities that potentially are going to be stuff that we ready now as fast as.
Yeah.
So in that event, how does industry get insight into, hey, you should match on a future capability?
Gotcha.
Looking for you to build another PhD.
That's a good question. That's a really good question. So,
hey,
go ahead, TJ.
No, I was going to say, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So the question basically is on the information, not only where they score on a certain thing. The question is applicability when there's an opportunity to demonstrate or there's a certain match that you think this company ought to be in the fights over here at with Colonel Van B at Syscom, or they ought to be having a discussion at the joint staff level. Is that kind of where you would hope that we would be making some of those matches, or there's an opportunity to operational demonstrate? How do we, how do we engage there? Is that kind of the question?
How do you engage there? How do you provide that information back to industry?
Yeah.
People engage or something quickly for.
Yep. Yeah. So as you matrix.
Hey,
yeah. So as you matrix, how do we get information back to the companies on maybe an engagement strategy for them based off of where they might be?
hey, Bob, can you see my screen? Can you share my screen with the or share screen that we have?
How do I do that with this?
Show my screen. So you should probably. So I don't know if you can see that screen up there. Yep. I knew this question was going to come up, so I was ready for this one. So let me know if the group can see that.
Yeah, you're live.
Okay. Hey, so everybody, look. Hey, Vulcan. Write this down. VulcanPackSoft.com. So this is an ecosystem that SOCOM uses that allows government and industry to share data in a protected environment. So the reason this is important. So again, Vulcan. You log into the system. What you can see here is they have. You see these dots here, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but you can go through here and you can say, hey, here are all of the the different activities they have going on. So you can view the submissions in there. Here's an event, Justified Accord, right? You can look at this. You can look at African Lion. You can click on this box here, and some of them. I'm not gonna go through it too strong, but you can look. This is where all multiple exercises are. And if there's an opportunity for you to submit a capability, it will allow you to do such. So again, VulcanSoft.com. You'll see, Balikatan, right? It shows you this. If there's if there's new technologies that are available, it will, your technology will show up as part of that. Tiger Triumph, another one, right? If you want to connect, click on that to submit. So again, Cobra Gold, right? So view submissions, so if you want to, so logging in, getting an account here, putting your capability in there, submitting your capability to some of these some of these opportunities, right? This is what's going to get you where you want to go, and be able to be part of these kind of activities. So so anyway, I'm just putting this stuff out here. You all should absolutely be looking at VulcanSoft and submitting your stuff there. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. But that's I think industry. Most people don't know that exists, and you need to know that exists.
TJ, can you repeat the website, please?
The website is Vulcan-soft.com. Victor Uniform Lima Charlie Alpha November dash or TAC, depending on your service of choice. Sierra Oscar Foxtrot.com. And you should be able to bring it up on your mobile devices. Again, you don't need to have a special access. You just need to submit in your, you should be good.
I'm just going to elaborate. I think what she's trying to go up, where she's going with the question is, in totally the single events, kind of like the disorders that are out there. If you're a sensor producer and you submit something and you think it's pretty interesting, novel, somewhere in there you might get some feedback to say, hey, I'd like to connect you to, and you got to sign it and agree to that. They might connect you to an edge AI company. And if you're a company that provides an ecosystem, they may say, hey, you should get with Magic Unicorn Technologies company.
Yeah.
That way, I know to reach out to them because we have something that you kind of like, we're not sure yet, but it will be from a, operational capability, that's such a thanks to the AI company, now there's a solution that's actually deliverable in Dynamics, or Dynamis, sorry. But the same thing is, the thing that you're kind of asking is, I don't know who else is going to approve, but I know if I pair with two industry companies who come to me,
So
say, you built down an independent thing that is quicker, turnkey, more rapidly integratable or interoperable, and now that you don't have to try to do the integration, we've already done that on back.
You got that, DJ?
So, yeah, I did. I think if I heard some of it, my internet was a little broken here, but I think the question generally was like, hey, how do we get an opportunity to partner? Is that generally what it is?
Yeah. How do you make that? How do you know what the other companies in that 190 consortium capabilities they had and where those matches might be?
I think we had in our RFI submission, we asked people if they were interested in partnering. So I think we go back to that and then say, hey, here's some things. So we can go back and look at that their submission there and say, hey, this company was interested in partnering. We see that, this guy's got peanut butter, this guy's got chocolate, hey, let's smash those two guys together. So I think we can go back and do that. But I think what I'd want to do is I'd want to go back to those companies independently and say, hey, here's what we think. We think there's some vendors that you may want to work with, and before we get them exposed, let them both kind of I guess do a tender. I guess they both got to swipe right on each other, however you do it, and then figure out if they make a match. I need. You know what? I said, hey, that's a pretty good idea.
We're going to put out an RFQ for that.
Yeah, exactly. Tender for acquisitions.
Sir.
Follow-on question to this last topic. Perhaps there's some both tracks, the proposed idea, but also for the mailing list of people who are interested in where your head is. Maybe you could send out something to us that just says, yes, no, I want to be on a list. And we each then submit something, a little bit about us, so that the matchmaking can happen independently, because we may see things we don't see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being in the integration of this last topic is a great input to me. So,
no, that's a great input. Somewhere between doing something like that, TJ's input, and maybe using Jeff and his extensive matchmaking ability.
Not that good.
Bob,
Yes, sir.
This might be a better question for TJ. The last slide with this TJ's tactical to strategic recommendations and a little bit of a timeline. What's not clear to me is this going to actually result in some like RPRQ/acquisitions? And if so, is that the timeline we're looking at, or is that still?
Yeah, that's so my desired end state is that this transition, I guess another metric we should put in here is that, hey, how many RPs, RFQs are generated through this? So that's another metric I think we need to put in there. So as I'm listening to, but the intent here is not to RFI, ad infinitum, right? So what we want to do through this process, right, is really, so we talk about the strategic piece is, hey, I want to take this RFI data to inform. So I want to take this RFI data and then get it to those decision makers to say, hey, you all need to execute, you have a gap. Here's the gap list. You don't have something for that. We already see, 5 or 6 capabilities that can meet your gap. You already know it. We've already done the work. You guys need to go ahead and start pushing that stuff out. We still need to socialize that piece, to be honest with you. And part of the timeline that I'm putting in here is our own ability to socialize that. But yes, to answer your question simply, yes, the intent is to move these RFIs into RFPs and RFQs where we can actually engage industry.
Great. And then one follow-up question, kind of your sandbox capability slide early on. It talks to a little bit of some roles on the slide, but I know that I can't remember if it was Sonny or Bob mentioned there's recently a governance charter signed. Can you talk a little bit more about the roles, given that there is a new Dynamis office up and running?
kind of flesh out a little bit, I guess, through the lens of this new charter?
Yeah, so I think that the new charter is almost more in line with how Headquarters Marine Corps conducts acquisition, except it's not, requirements aren't necessarily done out of CD&I, and acquisition decisions aren't necessarily made entirely out of Syscom. Both of those are kind of rolled up and informed out of DCI and the Dynamis-led, is it an executive team? What do they call it, TJ? I forget.
I think as an executive team, unfortunately, that charter came out when we got furloughed, so I hadn't had an opportunity to get all the way in it. But I do believe it's an executive team.
What they've done is they've created a cross-functional team that they've pulled up to a higher level above, really above the 3 stars, and that their job is to look at 2 timelines. One, how do I accelerate fielding of capability now over the next 18 months? And then 2, how do I make sure I have a CJAD C2 outlook at 2035 that ensures whatever I do now nests underneath that. And so, and that's all, that is literally all run by Colonel Smith and his cross-functional team, of which we are a member and, inform on, whether he should pivot here or pivot there. And again, in my perspective, this RFI, to me, whether it ever lets out an RFQ or not, this informs all my resources decisions I do now, right? It informs whether or not I'm doing an operational test with this or with that. It informs whether I put an APFIT in for this or for that. Whether I go after WILF funding left or right. Like in my mind, a good 40%, let's say this RFI advised everything that Dynamis did and the future RFQs that Colonel Smith and Syscom and others put off. And I'm certain it will, and I'm certain it'll do some of that. But a WILF is what, 10 million? A APFIT is up to 50 million. PIMTech is, if you look at all of the money and all of the things that we could be doing together in a synchronized approach, I mean, you're probably talking several hundred million. We just don't do it very well. And that's what I'm looking to take this stride into that next step. I mean, that's real money. 3 years ago, we're talking about, can I maybe get 200K from COM-MARFORPAC? And we're not playing that game anymore, right? So what I want to do is I want to use WILF, I want to use APFIT, I want to use all those OSD pots, and I want to use it to support what the service wants to do and help them shift left. I don't know if that's helpful. It is. We're trying to be aggressive without being disruptive, if that makes sense. Anybody else?
Yeah, one quick question. You mentioned exercises as well as breakers and such, and they probably selectively restructuring and pushing some of the component experimentation to the components and avoiding the joint specific experimentations within the chain themselves. Can you talk a little bit about how that might change the structure, how you execute this?
There's almost nothing we're going to do by ourselves. It's always with allies. It's always either with allies and partners or it's with my fellow components, because I know there's strength in numbers, and we shouldn't be doing, 5 components shouldn't be doing 5 different things. So anytime I'm looking to put in a submission, unless it's through the service, which it might just be a Marine Corps submission, then generally I'm going to combine, because the other thing that does is it increases our chance of winning and getting an award through an APFIT or something like that. Oh, yeah. Yep. I had an AI day that Microsoft helped us put together just a couple of weeks ago, or right before the shutdown, and I invited all of the components at the same time, and we walked out of there with 2 agreements across the components with no Indo-PACOM really involvement, although they certainly would celebrate what we were trying to do, is one, how do we all maybe do an SBU thing together at an operation? 2, how do we all kind of agree on some of the tenets of a data strategy? So we're doing things that are supportive of where Indo-PACOM wants to do or wants to go. We're just doing it together, as our own little cross-functional team. And so I'm sure, if Indo-PACOM said, hey, you're going to go participate here, and I think we're already going to have some of our bubble gum in that bag and be unified with them. So we're not out of step. I think there may be things they get directive on, but they haven't so far.
Yeah, one of the things I might add in here, I think it might be interesting, is how do we make a interoperable, interchangeable containerization strategy, right? Because we can't mandate a single Kubernetes infrastructure, and I'm just using this as an example, but we need to be able to say, hey, if I have, again, everything's joint, inherently joint coalition, but if I have a mission partner and I need to host capabilities in my Kubernetes infrastructure because I have access, I have emplacement. How do I move that data? How do I move those containers that may be from a different infrastructure into my own to be able to operate, episodically, and then move that data, move that container out somewhere else, right? That part is going to be super challenging, but super needy for the joint force.
Any other thoughts? TJ and I, like I say, we work for you. I mean it. I want to make sure that, we show how nascent we are in some areas and how strong we are in others, and we're modernizing and adapting our process and how we think. Because at the end of the day, I still want to be postured to go after OPM. That's my goal. I want to scale capability out to the theater faster. I can't do it through the service. They're only going to move as fast as they can. So I want to be not disruptive, but I want to go faster. So that's the intent, and that's why and you do too, right? So.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll say as well, Bob, to that is that I want everyone in there to know that the feedback you guys give us shapes our thinking. I think what I want to move away from a lot of stuff is that there's this idea that the folks on the government side know exactly what's going on, know exactly what's happening. We know what we know, but most stuff we don't know, and we have to be able to take some real good information from you guys, who I see as our peers. So we need that feedback loop. So I'm looking for candor all the time. Candor. We need to reward candor with our industry partners.
Okay. TJ, thanks, brother. I assume you're probably going to hang on the line. You're more than welcome to drop off because there may be other questions, but I want to run through Project Oracle real quick with the industry here, knowing that their time is important too. So MARFORPAC is starting to think about, and has been for about 6 months now, how do we accelerate in artificial intelligence, both from how do I employ it down throughout the MEF, and how do I become more efficient as a staff? And so I just wanted to spend 15 minutes across what we're doing, and then and allow you to then drive my thoughts on where pots of money and things we ought to be doing that we're not. And so you all know AI, machine learning, and so I wanted to offer our approach and then get your feedback. And so over the last 6 months, what we've kind of done is we've gotten our battle rhythm together as a staff at the MAR4 level. We're beginning to do that at the MEF level. And as a matter of fact, we've had discussions about how do we project a little bit of MAR4PACian folks down there and help them get their battle rhythm in order. And why is that important? Because we realize data is really freaking important. And as a matter of fact, it's one of the cross-cutting LOEs in our approach to artificial intelligence. And so as we pull this under what we call Project Oracle, we've drafted a data strategy. We've drafted a data execution plan. We've staffed it a little bit at the 06 level at the MEFs, got a little pushback because we realized, wait a second, maybe the MEF isn't as far along as we are, even though we're not that far along down the road either. And we've developed an AI strategy and assigned ownership to, lines of effort, not lines of operation. So just real quick, our lines of effort are split into 4 LOEs. Data discipline. Where's Miguel? You want to introduce or just stand up?
Yeah, you can't miss it.
Yeah.
The large man will be here.
Information management officer, MARFORPAC, came previously from the Marine side, as former Marine captain, 06 type, so communications of course. So luckily enough, got with MARFORPAC, to be on board, working with Paraton, but supporting regulation.
So, and Miguel said he's working for Paraton. Miguel's an action officer directly for the chief of staff on data. There's no question about that, and I rely on him daily.
Yeah, and anybody who knows our chief of staff from Ed Patanga, like we gave him the AI crack pipe, he smoked it, and now he can't put it down. And, if anybody knows, he's got 2 mistresses. One is named ChatGPT, and the other one is named Claude. So, and his wife Charlie is like, "We put that down already, and stop messing around with that." So yeah, he takes his work home sometimes.
Okay, so LOE2. So some of you all referenced the Shark Tank. That's really what this was about. LOE2 is agentic AI led by Captain Mason Millsap. Mason is, he's got an approach where he's starting to look at hackathons, different Shark Tanks, because we need to understand what industry has and can do. And so we're nascent in that. He already had one hackathon that moved the ball a little bit, but it really just began to educate us on the importance of getting our data and data discipline right. And you're going to hear me go back to that several times. LOE3, professionalize the force. What we've done is changing the culture of an organization is extremely hard. And as I'm going through these, if you're doing this type of stuff for other organizations, and you could add some MARFORPAC bolt-on somewhere to help us change that culture, we'd love it. LOE3, professionalize the force. We've broken that down into 4 different areas. One is AI champions. So if you're in this room and talking about AI and you're trying to move a group forward, you're probably one of those. You're a general user, so there needs to be a curriculum of training for that guy. If you are a staff member of MARFORPAC or MEF, there's an education continuum for them. And if you're a coder and you're actually building agents and you're doing that kind of thing, there's a career course or there's a curriculum for them. And so obviously we're trying to do that all simultaneously. We're trying to build what that looks like, how you become, how you can do that, as fast as possible. And so Lieutenant General Glenn is like, why are we not doing this already? We're getting to the point already that if you send something to him or you send something to the chief, and in it doesn't say what you used, what LLM you used, and where you gave a course correction. That's the type of relationship that he wants us to have, and he wants us to fall forward fast. And then lastly, staff efficiency. We took a almost 18% cut in staff within the last 2 years, and at the very time that we're supposed to be increasing capability, and we're the priority theater. And so now we're looking at how do you all know how we ought to be increasing our proficiency. We don't know that. And so finding ways to get that conversation started, we need help. And open to ideas. And so under Project Oracle, we've put together a process and governance governance framework. We have some implementation timelines and next steps. I don't need to go through all of that today, although if you want to hear about it, I'll tell you about it. Beginning when I send this out to you, you'll see in the backup some of what we call success matrix and evaluation framework. What is the MOE and MOPs for staff efficiency? You know, how do you gauge whether or not you're implementing a tool and whether or not it's worth the ROI? And so that's how we're beginning to think about AI at a MAR4, and then AI, a digital transformation task force with 95,000 Marines in the theater and 2 Marine Expeditionary Forces, and getting them synchronized. And so it's a rather major undertaking. I think having the data strategy, having an AI implementation plan, that's all positive stuff. But right now, if we were to move fast, we're going to move fast and not knowing if we're doing the right thing. And so open to feedback, questions, thoughts. I just wanted to give you a high level overview. You'll get more data when we send this out later. Unless, boss, anything you wanted to go deeper on?
You know, because I can't help myself.
Nope.
I'll make comments about things. You know, a lot of this, like what we're doing internally, is some of it's driven by each of the service headquarters, Department of War, like, hey, we're going to move out on this, and you need to implement this. This is for the staff and the MEF staffs, and how to increase efficiencies and effectiveness inside of headquarters. Like, you all understand that there are applications, AI-enabled algorithms and automation that are occurring in a lot of things we talked about over the last couple of days. Some of that has to do with how do we speed up functions and processes to do targeting, closing kill webs, from like correlation and fusion of sensed data. I mean, that's one aspect of it. This is like, how do I make sure that my staff isn't spending time building flat files and PowerPoint briefs, and we have tools and applications that can graphically display, visualize, or ingest, you know, any number of things when you think about, you know, synchronization matrices and operations and functions to do that, and then correlate this across the staff to go, okay, what is the 4 doing for sustainment and logistics? What is the 2 doing when we talk about a common intel picture? What is the 3 doing when we're talking about, you know, maneuver, you in any domain, going through all that, and to be able to rapidly assimilate that, make some sort of sense of that, and then provide that to the commander. So there are a couple different things when we start talking about AI and its implementation and its uses. And so, you know, some of the things we're trying to do is like more exposure to the staff to provide the commander better outputs to go through this.
Yeah, so some of the near-term stuff, you know, some of the success metrics, reduce staff processing time for routine tasks. How do we do that? We have a couple, you know, but you could have the best tools, but you've got a staff that has that's culturally set, right? Every day I come in and I pull this report and I put it in this read binder and I send it over to this person, right? Okay, not doing that anymore, right? That's not effective. Every day, our poll ad gets 200 emails, all of them about Department of State stuff. How can he sort it, you know, and come up with the ones that just the comm needs to read. And so figuring out how we do that, and then what are the implications of that across the staff. You know, we're just trying to get into the right battle rhythm. Smart cop, that's, you know, that's our staff's goal. That's the end state. How do we have a cop that is a lot more seamless and updated in real time? Near term, 100% of the staff needs to be trained. That has to happen in the next couple of months. Yeah, so anyhow, I just wanted to, I'm going to send this all out to you. I can either turn this into a 2-hour discussion or a 20-minute. I think given where we are in time and space, 20-minute was more relevant. But this will come out to you in the slide deck. But we want your thoughts. We want hey, we're already doing this for component X, Y, or Z. We're already doing this for another GCC. We know we're behind. We need to go fast. And so, yeah, anything you could do to help us, please let us know. Any questions on that?
Yeah, Bob, when you send this out, I'm familiar with the professionalization effort.
Yeah.
And the AI effort.
Yep.
And the hackathon.
Yeah.
The AI effort was very detailed on what you wanted. Do you have something that describes what you want for the hackathon as well as the professionalization effort as well in that level of detail?
I have from the professionalization, I have the users broken out, and we have a few suggested courses, what we think like a staff needs to know, or what a general user needs to know, or what an AI champion needs to know, but we haven't gotten as far there as we have gotten other places. So I'll give some thought as to what I send out. Yeah, hi.
On the smart costs that you had mentioned, one of the challenges I've seen in working with the other commands that everyone wants a copy. Everyone wants their own view of a copy, and everyone wants their own data, and so on and so forth. And I feel like with, especially as talking to Pat and Millsap, a lot of the advantages that agentic AI can bring can help to bring that same kind of idea of real-time data that you described, but not have this static view of a pop, but rather these dynamic views that can be created by prompting agents in real time. Is that more of the idea behind having this smart pop capability where everyone can have their own flavor and have this capability to get these dashboards, these metrics, and pull that from the correct data provenance in real time? Or is it still to have these kind of different views that are like chatbot enabled or have some description behind them that could be fueled by generative AI?
I think it's the former. I think real time is the right data immediately when I need it, where I need it, regardless of echelon, really. Anybody else? I think this begins to putting the foundation here aligns us for more resources, right? And so we're going to be doing that work. If you want to help us, if you got ideas to help us, if you see other pots of money for AI type things, because everybody wants to, private investors or whatever, we'll give them operational use cases and that kind of thing. So for those of you that hung in for the full afternoon after Index, I appreciate it. We don't take it for granted. I hope you got that this is a three-legged stool. I am working for you. I believe in what we're doing here, and I believe we're going to continue to resource outside of the normal resourcing pipelines. And if you have ideas on how to do that better, I work for you. So.
Yeah, I like that. I appreciate your time and engagement. I know we started losing folks and people are going on, they got to catch flights, going on travel, they have other things they scheduled. But just like last year, I think the level of engagement, the level of interest that we have, I know that'll continue. And I was just talking to Jeff, like when this goes out, when we send this out, and how to contact, who to contact, until the shutdown is done. There's only a handful of uniformed contractor folks inside the MARFORPAC headquarters that are actually able to engage on this. So just like everything else, please give us a little bit of time as we work at how we uncover from all of this.
Thank you, Colonel.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Bob, and obviously, TJ, I've got a virtual coin for you, so you'll get that in the mail. Also, I just want to reiterate, because I know everybody's going to ask, and I'm probably going to get a flood of email about it. The slide deck and the video will be released in about a week. Obviously, both TJ and Bob are furloughed, not reading their emails. It's not going to come from MARFORPAC. The Colonel's not sending it out of his email. It will come from FCA the same way we send a number of the invites out, even for the folks that participated in Shark Tank and all those emails came out through FCA or through one that I will have that sent out. The problem is, as I was just talking to Colonel, is I'm sure a lot of you either have some input or will have some questions and you're going to want it to go back to MARFORPAC. We haven't figured out yet where or how to get it back into MARFORPAC. So some of it may be, we'll have to work on that to see, or we'll come up with an email address at FCA that will hold those, and then when Bob and TJ come back off of furlough, we'll have them available for them, so emails coming back, because again, if you send it back to when it comes from FCA, they're not going to want to respond because they're just being the conduit to get the link to the video and get the PowerPoint out.
Jeff,
It'll probably be a
you know what
PDF.
we're going to do?
But no, don't use my address. No.
You know what- Come on. Both of us being 6,000 deep in emails is good. What we're going to do, we're going to send this out as soon as we can get it out, and I guess that's in the next week or so, okay? What I'll do is I'll set up a Teams call. I'll launch it out to everybody, and it won't be to brief anything. It'll just be a question and answer. You guys can ask any questions after material went out. You went back to home station. You were like, hey, this doesn't make any sense at all. And then we'll have we'll have an hour and a half of just, you can ask questions or whatever. Again, because this, one team, that's right. After the shutdown, one team, one fight.
And just so you know, when you walked in, you got scanned. So we have everybody's email here. So that's the list that will go back out. Yeah. We have your ID, we have your credit card. But again, FCA has all that, so they've already taken all those back. They will have that spreadsheet when they're ready to send it all out. We get it to them. You'll get a copy of it. So, and it's publicly available. So from that matter, from the YouTube channel, once you have that, you can also share it all or whatever. That will be, Colonel's already said that this is all public, so it will be out there. But you folks are the ones that are going to get it. People that weren't here aren't going to get it unless you forward it back to folks that you want in your organizations or other folks you think may be of interest. And we know what we call the coconut wireless in Hawaii, right? I know you know 3 other people that send it to them, so we know it won't just go to 150 people that were here today. It'll, in the next, once it goes out, it'll go to a lot of folks. So anyways, thank you everybody for coming today. Appreciate it.
You're getting scared.